Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Community Infrastructure Service Committee meeting for Monday, August 21st, 2017. Just want to welcome everyone back from our holiday break, and hopefully everyone's fresh and excited to get down to business today. We do have some items on the agenda today, numerous consent items. Do I have a mover for the consent items? Councillor Fernandez. Councillor Gazzola?
I have a couple of questions I would like to...
Do you have which ones in particular?
5, 7, 8.
5, 7, and 8?
10, 11.
10 and 11?
Very quick question.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, no, wait a minute. We have to take... You do too as well? Yeah, okay. We'll take a vote on that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's... Can we please do that again? Because I didn't see all full hands up. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Zola. I don't have anyone else that's...
Okay. Yeah, on item number 5, I just want to learn something here. Why doesn't something become effective when council approves it? Why does it take several months before it to become effective? We have a problem.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. In many cases, it is when council approves it. In this case, there were a number of internal administrative procedures that had to be put in place in order to handle these, and so a longer-term period was put in place.
So normally, does it become effective the night that it's approved by council?
Through you, Mr. Chair, or when the bylaw is passed, one of the two.
On number 7, the vote was only 22% of the people responded, and the vote was 6-5. Do we ever do that's pretty close with such few people. Do we ever do a resurvey or a recount or?
Mr. Carmichael?
Through the chair, no, we don't typically do resurveys. We count on the one that we do with the residents. We provide typically 3 weeks of time for residents to respond. And in specifics, I did check in with the local councillor on this issue and received support for proceeding with the recommendation.
All right, and along the same lines, I wondered when we came, the results seemed very poor with responses on a number of these questions. Are we doing the survey at the wrong time of the year? Like you're doing all these surveys in the summertime? A lot of people are away, or?
Through the chair, we typically try to react on the request in a timely fashion, regardless of the time of year. Having said that, we recognize the challenges of summer and typically give a little more time to respond. But I will say that response rates to parking surveys are commonly very low. We don't get significant engagement from the public on these on a regular basis, and the numbers that are shown in the report, quite frankly, aren't out of norm for a lot of parking surveys we do.
Okay, I'm surprised because I thought public engagement was one of the things we've been trying to stress upon. So, okay, the same thing, sort of thing relates to item number 10, the always stop. I know we've done counts and all that, but do the residents have any say? I didn't see any results from polling the residents.
Through the chair, in response to that question, we do not survey residents when it comes to traffic engineering controls. That's something that is done through engineering, and quite frankly, we don't feel that traffic controls such as always stop signals, they should be done through traffic engineering to provide a consistent expectation for drivers and should not be done through resident surveys.
All right, final question. On the Grow Public School, we're blocking off a whole street. We're prohibiting stopping at all on both sides. Where are those people going to go that are using that now? Is that just going to move it over to another street?
Through the chair, we commonly place no stopping regulations on the frontages of all schools from a safety perspective, and the opposite sides of the streets are typically also addressed with stopping regulations, and this is a proactive approach for the new school. Not uncommon to have these regulations around our public schools, and as far as parking supplies go, or supply goes, that typically the residents do find a location in the immediate area. We're taking off a block here, but there are alternatives in the area for on-street parking.
So I gather my answer is yes, they are going to be going on the streets around there then, taking it off one and shoving them over to another.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a few other questions. Councillor Schneider?
Chair Ioannidis, just a clarification on item 10 for the all-way stop at Pebble Creek Drive and Zeller Drive. The initial request did come from a resident on that.
Okay, thanks for that update. Councillor Fernandez?
Yeah, just to Councillor Gazzola's question around the new growth school. The curve is quite sharp coming from South Creek, so what we're trying to do is keep that area clear, so that students who might be coming from South Creek won't have to be worried about not being able to see as they cross the street to the school property. In addition, this just further past Thomas Lee, there is a little bit more of an open area that's still close enough to the school for the students to walk. So I just wanted to let you know. The snow stopping is on that side of the street is only between the school opening and closing periods.
Okay, thank you for that update. Councillor Marsh, just hold on one sec. Clicking in. Okay.
I just have one question about number 12, the Guelph Street underpass illumination. Just to ask staff to clarify, are we certain that no residential properties will be adversely affected by the lighting? And will the lighting be LED smart city lighting like the rest of the city?
Through the chair, there are no residents impacted. This is in the industrial area between Spring Valley and Riverbend as you go under the expressway there. So it's a matter of lighting their structure. It's standard procedure for the MTO to do so when they do revisions on the structure. And the second question, sorry?
Are we using LED
Yes.
lights?
In response, yes, we are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no further questions, and it's been moved by Councillor Fernandez. All consent items through 1 to 12. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, now on to our discussion items. We do have several delegations in regards to our next item, which is dealing with the Bright Up Ball Diamonds lightings. Just wanted to give staff will be providing a 10-minute presentation on this matter, and also to remind our delegates that are in the audience, and welcome, that pursuant to Council's procedural bylaw, delegations are permitted to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. So we will be with you next after we deal with the staff here, their presentation. Okay. Mayor Urbanovic. It's have you on here. I don't know what's going on. We're in council mode. Can you click in? Go ahead.
Just as a reminder that late last week, yourself, Councillor Marsh, and myself, along with staff, had a circulation around the delegations coming today. There was some concern around some delegates not getting their mail until late last week and not being informed. So the hope is that I think Councillor Marsh at the end of today will actually be bringing a motion to refer this issue to council next week, and that in fact we won't take a vote today, but out of respect for those who may not have received notice in time, we'll hear the delegations next week at council, any remaining delegations, and then deal with it directly at council. But today the intent would be that we simply refer the issue at the end of today to council.
Okay. No, I mean, are you saying you don't want us to see delegations?
No.
You
We'll
just
hear
wanna-
delegations
you just wanna
today.
enlighten us.
We won't take
Enlighten us,
any sort
okay.
of vote today. We will simply refer the matter. Councillor Marsh intends to refer the matter to council next week.
Okay. Because there's a few delegations here, and okay. Okay, thank you for that update. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair and members of council. I'm going to provide a bit of an overview in terms of the overall context of the discussion today, and I'm going to pass the presentation over to Mark. And really the decision today in the discussion is broader than one sport and one field location. When staff is asked to accommodate a new program or growth within an existing program, we follow a principle that focuses on maximizing existing infrastructure prior to looking at acquiring new lands or building new infrastructure. This allows us to fulfill commitments within Council's strategic plan in a fiscally responsible way. In particular, the strategic plan notes that we will strengthen the capability and capacity within the organization to manage all of the city's assets so that they are affordable, dependable, and sustainable in the long term. And it also refers to, under safe and thriving neighborhoods, that we want to continue to encourage active participation in existing recreational facilities while moving forward with the provision of new recreational opportunities in underserviced areas of the city. I also want to point that community engagement is a very important part of the process. Staff are committed to incorporating community ideas and addressing concerns throughout the process. And I believe there has been good collaboration with the neighborhood, and Mark is going to speak to some of that, to collect information to better understand concerns raised and identify measures to address concerns. And I wanted to set this context before we begin discussion specifically on lighting of the Bright Up Ball Diamonds.
Thanks, Denise. Good morning, Council. I'll start with the background and the demand. As you might recall from previous Council report and presentation, this begins with a diamond demand study that was conducted to recommend short and medium-term needs of ball diamond users based on existing ball diamond inventory, past and present booking tendencies, user input sessions, and provincial trends. Key results indicated a rental of Class A, A1, A2 diamonds are currently maximized. The city also saw significant growth in diamond rentals, coinciding with significant growth experienced by key local and provincial ball organizations, as seen in the 15% and 34% growth figures for Baseball Ontario and Kitchener-Meyer Baseball Association. Based on the evaluation criteria, the demand study offers two critical conclusions. One, that the city requires an additional 1.5 diamonds to meet current demand, and that the city will require an additional 6 demands to meet short-term demand by 2021. This level of demand can be addressed by building new diamonds or lighting existing facilities. The study ultimately provides 3 recommendations to address demand, 2 of which relate to today's main issue. The first is a review of demand diamond time allocation, and the second to add lights to 2 ball diamonds at Bright Up Park. The first recommendation, the allocation review, creates efficiencies through schedule shifting, for example, moving from 6:30 to 6 p.m. start times, and reallocation of certain ball diamond opportunities. The second recommendation includes lighting of Bright Up Park. So why Bright Up? First is the quality. These A1 ball diamonds are considered to be the highest quality diamonds for this level of play in the City of Kitchener and the region of Waterloo. It's cost effective. These diamonds include ideal field dimensions directly aligning with the user growth. The demands are also in the same location, creating greater efficiencies in both capital and operational costs. Opportunity. The Bright Up diamonds are the only existing unlit diamonds, irrigated or skinned infields. Lions Park and Jack Couch are the other diamonds in this category, both of which are already lit. Lastly, the The diamonds target primary user groups, immediately alleviating pressure of reported growth in both Baseball Ontario and Kitchener Minor Baseball Association, both of which are the primary user groups of the Bright Up Hardball Diamonds. 3 public meetings were hosted by staff through the consultation process, in addition to the neighborhood volunteers conducting park studies through the summer, to which those neighborhood volunteers should be commended for their assistance. Overall, 19 households were represented through these meetings, in addition to representation from Kitchener Minor Baseball. Staff, volunteers from the user groups and the neighborhood conducted studies on parking, park behavior, noise, and hours of operation to better understand concerns being raised in order to develop the best mitigation strategies. Results of these studies are found in the staff report appendices, and in the interest of time, I won't go through every single detail. Onto the mitigations, the parking counts clearly showed a reliance on 2 informal parking areas, indicated in Appendix B of the report. Staff are proposing to explore formalization of both in an effort to increase capacity and encourage diamond users to utilize the correct facility for their diamond use. On-road parking will not be restricted, so signage and communication strategy will need to be employed in this effort. Behavior noise reporting and readings suggest current activities fall within a good categorization. However, specific observations indicate this can be improved upon. Staff will continue to work with all users to enforce code of conduct policies and increase bylaw and police presence. The city has seen success with this method in the past with other sport-related facilities, for example, the auditorium and other arenas. Consolidating parking will have an added benefit of reducing post-game in-road disturbances. In-game noise can be mitigated through long-term enhanced planting. However, it should be noted that it is and will not be possible to eliminate in-game noise entirely for those concerned neighbors. Working closely with KMBA, a schedule was developed with the earliest feasible time that lights could be shut off to address concerns about noise, continuing later into each night. This would apply to Monday to Saturday, excluding Sunday nights, as it will be restricted from use of lighting. The city and KMBA have been able to reduce the end of lighting time of Diamond Number 1, this is the one closest to Union Street, to 10:15 p.m. by shifting the first game to 5:30 p.m. Due to the older age groups and traveling demands, the earliest possible time on Diamond Number 2 is 6 p.m., leading to a game ending time of 10:45 p.m. The intent of the schedule is to achieve 2 game slots each night while balancing neighbors' concern and user group needs. The Diamond Stagger proposed will also have a secondary benefit of relieving traffic congestion during game turnover and provide an additional 100-meter buffer between Union Street and the activity at Diamond Number 2 past 10 p.m. So I'll go into a few alternatives here now. Hearing some of the concerns from the neighborhood, staff investigated alternatives to lighting the diamonds, including upgrading lower quality fields or developing new fields. Scenario A here targets 3 B-level diamonds for upgrade and lighting. The costs of this scenario are significantly higher due to the upgrades and infrastructure required, developing diamonds in 3 different locations, and a 3rd diamond being required to upgrade to accommodate displaced non-hardball users. Scenario B outlines a potential new land purchase for 1 new diamond, since lighting 2 existing diamonds at Bright Up is equal to constructing 1 new lit diamond. There are no new potential lands identified, and an estimate is provided based on average land costs with projected construction costs. This value is presented with a high degree of uncertainty, however, due to many unknown variables with the uncertain land. These 3 options, including lighting Bright Up diamonds, were evaluated against the criteria of efficient land use, operating costs, capital costs, meeting the user needs, and neighborhood impact. Upgrading and adding lighting to 3 other existing diamonds and purchasing land to construct new diamonds were ruled out as we did not have budget to support them, nor would they address the immediate shortage of playing time. In closing, staff's recommendation to add lighting to Bright Up Park allows us to meet current demand by increasing inventory, minimizing cost impact, and creating operating efficiencies. It is also an appropriate first step as we move forward in looking at the big picture and community needs ahead of us as we plan to accommodate the continued growth of the sport in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Parrish. We'll deal with the delegations, and then we'll ask questions afterwards to staff. Okay, our first delegate up is Patty Moses. Welcome.
Good morning, Honourable Mayor and Council members. Thank you for your time today. My name is Patty Moses, and I'm speaking on behalf of a vast majority of residents to the park that we, as a community of families, are opposed to lights being put in the diamonds at Bryda Park. Let me also tell you that as a community of families, we are in favor of children playing ball or other sporting activities and all the benefits that derive from that. However, after having identified neighbourhood concerns and attempts to resolve them, we still have cars taking up entire blocks of parking on our streets, clogging up the dirt road, parking on grass both in the park and at New Dawn, and not parking in the main parking lot. Even with the addition of 2 new porta potties being installed, a neighbor, Bonnie from Oakwood Avenue, asked me to tell you that during her walks with her dog, she sees people regularly urinating in the park during ball game games. We still have regular sightings of people openly drinking. Even with the issues, being told that the issue of taking care of the music issue has been done, we still have music being played at games. Even with all these solutions in place, it is now clear that no one can resolve these issues. And the most important identified problem that cannot be mitigated is in-game noise. Baseball is a competitive sport, and it's one team pegged against another. One team wins and one loses. And with that model of play brings the emotions that drive the in-game noise. We hear it loud, and some days we can't escape it. It's loud and clear. And for those of you who were not able to attend our homes, I wanted to just play a very short clip for you of one particular that was recorded from my front bedroom window inside my home. We do not want to hear this sound after 9 p.m. Some days this noise is already from morning till night, and as it was yesterday, we listen to it almost every weekend. There comes a time at the end of the day when we say enough is enough. The neighbors of this park are saying loud and unequivocally no to games played after 9 p.m. Some people who were not able to be here due to work schedules and holiday bookings, Fred R. of 23 Ridgewood Avenue told me, and I quote, "I'm pretty ticked with this lighting situation for the ball diamonds. On our street we have a policy of quiet and we do not wish to be disturbed during late baseball games." Cynthia P. of 18 Ridgewood said, and I quote, "I would totally oppose the lights on later than 9 p.m. and the additional traffic and noise beyond this time frame is unacceptable." Rob and Christina W. of 57 Ridgewood are adamantly opposed to the lights. We need some peace and quiet at some point of the night. Shannon and Terry from 112 Fairfield asked me to let you know that they are strongly opposed to the lights and later games. Their concern is increased traffic noise at the end of the games, litter, and community safety. I know others wanted to share their opposition as well, and hopefully we'll have that chance next Monday. We keep hearing that there's a growing need for more diamond space, and especially the clay skin diamonds. And as I mentioned, as a community of families, we are strongly in favor of supporting activities for our youth. But there's a problem with the actual usage of these diamonds, and that is, I believe, a critical point to this issue. Somewhere in and around the mid-July, I started noticing that games were being played most days, but I would come home from work, and more often than not, they would be on games would be on Diamond 3. Not the clay-skinned, supposedly highly sought-after diamonds. I started keeping track on July 30th, and what I observed over those couple of weeks was shocking to me. We know that games can be canceled for many reasons, and this is not a large-scale scientific study, but the facts will speak loud and clear. What we found was the actual usage of the diamonds during my observations in this short period of time was 61% during the week and 33% on the weekends. July 16th, 11:10 a.m. This was a Saturday. No games on any diamonds. Saturday, July 30th, diamond 1 and 2 stood empty most of the day. 3 was used. Wednesday, August 12th, 6 p.m., diamond 2 and empty that entire evening. Thursday, August 3rd, diamonds 1 and 3 empty the entire evening. Saturday, August 5th, diamonds 1 and 2 empty all morning, and by 2 o'clock there were no games on any diamonds. These are all, and I have a list of others too, these are all either dry, sunny, or overcast days and evenings with no downpour or other risky, hazardous weather. We need to know what's going on here. There cannot be a deficit in time slots when the diamonds are currently only being used, according to this scientific survey, approximately 50% of the time. And we know that there are diamonds, 3 diamonds that sit empty on sunny, prime days in the summer. At the very least, this proposal needs further study. These numbers are facts, and they need to be considered long and hard before the decision is made. I was told to keep the emotion out of this and to keep to the facts. Well, last night as I went to bed at 10 p.m., I reveled in the peace and quiet. It was a relief from a very busy, intense, and noisy day, 12 hours of ball. Then it hit me. If these lights go in, that peace and quiet will be stolen from me. And that, my friends, is a fact. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Ms. Moses. We do have some questions for you.
Yes.
Councillor Fernandez.
Excuse me. Thanks, Patty, and thank you for your very well laid out presentation. I know in speaking to you yesterday, you were a little bit concerned about being able to get everything in, but I think you did a really good job.
Thank you.
While I was there yesterday, there was some baseball noise, but not terribly offensive. When you are sitting in your backyard, let me just go back. You said that noise was from your bedroom window, which I'm assuming, and I stand corrected, is from the front of the house. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. When you're in your backyard, though, is that volume of noise reduced by your house being in front of where the diamonds are, or is it still as continuous and ongoing as that?
I didn't measure it in the back, but the front bedroom window and the back bedroom window are lined up, and my patio or my deck is right outside the back bedroom window. So if I'm sitting on my deck, I'm hearing that, and I'm hearing it all day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to know, how do you see, last night was Sunday night, and we've already heard that there won't be any lighting on Sunday evenings. And you indicated that there are some evenings where there are no diamonds, there are no games going on. So what would you indicated that you see your lifestyle being impacted by this change. Can you give us a few other examples of lifestyle changes that you see, or maybe that you've heard from your neighbors that this will do to all of you?
Well, I think my last statement kind of spoke to that, and I appreciate that question. There are people who have spoken to me who said, Ms. Parker from Ridgewood said, I have grandchildren in my home, and I put them to bed, and their bedroom's back onto the bush, or onto the diamonds. If there is and she's right behind number 2, which is the diamond that is meant to be lit until 11 p.m. So whether it's 6 nights a week or 7 nights a week, she's very concerned about how that's going to impact their sleep. I've spoken to people who live down the street from me who go to bed at 9 o'clock because they're up at 4 o'clock because they commute. And they're very concerned. So their bedrooms are at the front of the house. They're very concerned that, at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, that the noise and the traffic and all of the other issues are going to impact their well-being. For myself, 10 o'clock is pretty much it for me, and I'm done. But if I had that playing at 10 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night, I wouldn't be sleeping. Mm-hmm. And so that is how that's going to impact me personally. But I have heard from many, many people in the neighborhood who are very concerned about what this noise is going to mean to their well-being.
So essentially, I'm understanding that you're talking about the noise in the later hours, so for the second set of games, the noise of the crowd and the doors of the cars and the movement of the vehicles are two major concerns for you and the residents who you're supporting.
Sorry, could you ask that again?
Essentially, what I'm understanding from you is that the two issues that are most concerning to you is the later games will affect the ability for yourself and your neighbors to have a good night's sleep on the nights that the games are being played in those late hours.
Well, I mean, yes, in-game noise, as Mr. Paris has indicated, there is nothing that anybody can do with that, and I don't think that they should. The children should be allowed, I mean, you know, their families are there encouraging them, and they're happy when they get a home run, and we like that too. We want to encourage that, but not at 10 o'clock at night, not at 10:30 at night, and certainly not at 10:45 at night. Last week, one of the nights I was sitting out front, I noticed that all the games were done at 8:30, and I happened to see about a half a dozen cars up on the gravel road. And I went inside the house, and I could see that people were mulling around talking, which they're entitled to do, it's a public park. But it was 9:15 before those 6 cars left. That's 45 minutes following a game. What does that mean at 11 o'clock when a game ends and they're leaving at 11:45? Now, maybe that's not a realistic scenario, I don't know, but what I'm experiencing is that it can take up to half an hour to an hour before people actually leave the park.
Okay.
So extending the time to even 10:15 means that we could have people leaving at 11 o'clock en masse, which can be disruptive to families.
Okay, thank you
Does
very
that
much.
answer your question,
It does.
Yvonne?
Thank you very much, Patty.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, thank you for coming in, and thank you for your presentation. I thought it was quite well done. Also, thank you for the invitation to come to your place and experience firsthand the noise from the park.
And thank you for coming. I appreciate that as well.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. You outlined some statistics that you had provided. When does this baseball season start that you've noticed in the spring? I would assume that this all gets rolling. Was that usually in May or
I believe
April?
it starts in May. I don't know when official games actually start. Sometime end of May, I believe, when the inclement weather is past. Maybe
Right.
early June.
And then it'll go on till into September, October?
I believe.
I'm just based on past practice from previous
Councillor
years.
Yaneski, why don't you save those questions to staff, that they can answer those questions?
Well, I want to ask her for her opinion.
Well, she doesn't know.
Well, I have knowledge of when the games start because I'm impacted by them. So I do know that sometime around the end of May, early June, the games start in full force. And I believe that they run at least until the end of September, well past the beginning of school. Yes, the city staff would
I'm
have.
going to ask staff of that afterwards. What happens during the day, during the week?
During the week?
During the week, are there games there or anything? Practices?
Not KMBA or official games that I'm aware of. Usually they start, if I'm home and I happen to notice they can be out around 4 o'clock, I believe the games start perhaps around 4:30 like a weeknight. And they can run until, depending on the weather, 8:30 or even 9 o'clock.
Okay. From the beginning of this issue, which started back in the spring, the residents here raised a number of issues of garbage and loitering and a variety of other stuff. From what staff have done in the last 2, 3, 4 months to address them, has there been an improvement in terms of, I mean, when I was out there, now I see porta potties, and is there littering less from what you've experienced and improvements in any way?
Well, we were told that the families of the KMBA players would be advised not to park along Union Street or I believe on Oakwood or Ridgewood. It's been pretty consistent where the cars are parked right from the bush on Union sometimes all the way down to Maplewood. And about a month or so ago, I had a shower for a family member who ended up having to park almost at Maplewood and walk up with her baby because there was just no parking on the street anywhere. We do have neighbors who are still observing people relieving themselves in the park. I went for a walk last night, probably about 7 o'clock, up to Diamond 3. There were at least 4 or 5 water bottles laying around with candy wrappers and other types of things. So do I think that it's improved? No, I don't. Do I have a scientific study to show that? No.
One other question I have is you indicated about drinking. After I visited with you, I walked through the park and watched some of the games there and spent quite a bit of time. And I specifically went by to see how the people who were there, they had picnic baskets and lawn chairs and blankets all there. They were enjoying the game, which is fine, and they were having hot dogs that they brought themselves and chips and snacks. But they also, some of them were drinking water bottles, but others had containers, and I couldn't find anybody drinking alcohol. Do you find that they're drinking alcohol in cans or beers, or do you think it's all hidden in an enclosed container of some type that you couldn't identify?
I can't speak to what people have in their containers. I know that when we did the studies, there was 2 times where I observed people having cans of beer in their chairs. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, those were the only 2 sightings in the study. I was trying to be respectful of people and not be intrusive on their time, but I would just be trying to observe what was happening. I think for the most part, people are relatively well behaved, but it's a public park, and all of the things that we've talked about are going to happen.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yuniesky. Councillor Marsh.
Thanks, Patty, for your presentation and for highlighting, the issues that you have heard from many of the residents. I also want to thank you for the time that you've taken to work on this issue. You've engaged with the neighbors, you've engaged with staff to work on volunteering to be an observer, and I want to just make sure that council is aware of your personal commitment to working on this issue, so thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us as well. We appreciated having you out.
No problem. I want to ask you, I had, most of my questions have been answered, but regarding the mitigations, do you, beyond in-game noise, do you see any potential for additional mitigations that might work, that might have worked? Like what could have been done differently to address the parking, the behavior, and some of the noise?
Well, I suppose I don't know how these issues are being monitored or I don't want to say policed, but I don't know if anyone is actually monitoring what's happening. Certainly when we have a day when there are 12 cars parked along Union Street, doesn't seem to be anybody coming along saying, hey, could you guys go and park up top? There's plenty of space up there, because I've walked up to the parking lot and it's half empty, but yet the entire street is taken up. Mm-hmm. So I really don't know what is in place in terms of keeping an eye on these things and trying to manage them. Mm-hmm. I think, we've all agreed as we've talked that human behavior is human behavior, and people are going to take, as Yvonne said, the path of least resistance. So if somebody is on this side of the diamond and the porta potty's on that side, it's just a whole lot easier to go into the bush. Mm-hmm. If the garbage receptacle is on the other side of the diamond, it's just a whole lot easier maybe to drop something thinking, well, the city park staff will come and pick it up. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. I think beyond that, it would be good to have further conversation about how these things can be mitigated.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Councillor Gazzola.
Am I allowed to ask the delegate where she lives?
No.
Can I ask her what street she lives on?
You can ask the street.
What street do you live on?
I'm sorry?
What street do you live on?
I live on Union Street.
On Union, okay. Yeah, I don't have any other questions other than that. I did want to compliment you for becoming engaged, for really, you've done a lot of work. There are two or more sides to every story, and you've done a lot of work for your neighborhood, so you're to be complimented.
Thank you, and I'd like to extend that to my other neighbors, Sean and Ange as well, because together we've been working very hard on this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Vrbanovic.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming in and sharing some of your thoughts with us on this issue. It is a balancing act that we are going to have to deal with as council. One of the things you referenced in your presentation, if I heard it right, and I think it was from one of your neighbors, was a policy of quiet on the street. And is that sort of, I'm just trying to understand where that policy is, or is that just sort of a neighborhood reference that exists?
So it's a very good question. I received an email from Mr. Regent from Ridgewood, and his comments included that I believe it's sort of if you will, a gentleman's agreement and woman's agreement to try and be respectful of each other on the street. I can't speak directly to it, but I believe that there could be some kind of a timeline when they say, let's not play music, let's not have loud, maybe doing construction or those kinds of things. It's certainly not an official policy. Okay. I believe it's an agreement.
Okay, I just wanted to get a sense of that because, I wasn't aware that there were any neighborhoods with specific covenants such as that, and other than that, it would be our bylaws that apply. I think all the other questions I have been asked, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Moses, we still have some more for you. One more. We still have one more member of committee that would like to ask you some questions. Councillor Etherington.
Patty, thanks very much for coming in. In your opening remarks, you said a vast majority of residents oppose what is happening. Can you tell me what you mean by that? Do you have any measure of that?
So my neighbor Angela is going to speak to sort of some of the numbers, and I don't know if that would satisfy that, but
it would.
Back in March, I believe, or early in the process, we did a walkabout, and we got 44 signatures on a petition, which, as we calculated according to the average number of homes in the neighborhood, was approximately in the 70%. So I felt fairly confident to say that we are speaking on behalf of the majority.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You've been very active in this particular issue. I had a very similar issue in my ward a couple of years ago at Woodside. And based on the staff involvement and council involvement, we were able to work out, I think, or compromise most of the problems there, which were very similar to what you're complaining about. So I wanted to ask you, staff has been very involved in this. Are you satisfied with what you've seen happen with staff in this issue? Because you seem not to have been able to reach that kind of a resolution.
Well, let me start by saying that I appreciate the staff, and we're sort of on opposite ends, so it's a little bit difficult to, I believe that they believe that they're doing the best. I don't know that anybody can understand the impact of what this proposal is going to have on our community. So unless you're actually living in this community, adjacent to the park or surrounding it, it doesn't have the same impact. The city is looking at, numbers and dollars, and those are all fine and dandy, but as I said, at 10 o'clock at night, when we're trying to sleep and there's still a game going on, the city staff are not there to make that go away or to help us with that. So I do believe that they have worked hard, and to me it comes back to human behavior. And I don't think that's something that's easily changed.
I agree.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Moses. We have no further question.
Thank you.
Our next delegation up is Angela Larrogibel. Sorry if I mispronounced your last name.
That was pretty close.
Okay, great, thanks. Welcome.
Thank you. I wanted to start off by saying thank you for having me here today and providing me with an opportunity to share my concerns as well about this proposal. I appreciate your full attention that you're giving this matter. And I'd like to echo what Ms. Moses said, that we have no issue with the park being used, and in fact we recognize the value of the children being active, participating in team sports, the activity at the park. That being said, I would like to review our neighborhood's concerns regarding this proposal, discuss some of the data collected by the staff, and speak in a little more depth about our concerns around in-game noise and the impact of the lights on our neighborhood. So, as Patty referred to earlier, we did collect 44 signatures in a petition opposing the lights from houses potentially affected by this proposal. This neighborhood nearly unanimously opposes the lights. Residents have concerns about some of the behavior, but the majority of their concerns revolve around in-game noise. And that's our biggest concern after 9 p.m. And as we've alluded to several times earlier, city staff has acknowledged they cannot mitigate this, and they shouldn't have to. People want to cheer on their kids. We understand that. I'm going to go through to the next slide. This graph was part of the city's initial proposal report. It shows an ebb and flow of interest in ball over the past several years. It shows dips in both 2013 and 2015. It states that the increase in 2014 was partially driven by higher than normal tournament bookings. We were told that they expected the interest to rise given that the Jays were in the playoffs last year, so we asked for some data from the 92-93 era to see if we could establish some sort of pattern from that time, because they won then and then they stopped winning. So we wondered if that they're in last place, would that have a reflection on the interest in the program? We weren't able to, we never received any of that data. But this data, along with the information collected by Ms. Moses that she referred to earlier on the diamond utilization, gives us great cause for concern. The anecdotal diamond utilization information was presented to a city employee who said there must be some kind of disconnect, and we agree. And if there is some kind of disconnect, we think it warrants more study before we put over $500,000 into this proposal. This slide is pulled from the City of Waterloo Baseball Diamond Strategy, which states in part that the City of Waterloo recognizes the impact of lighting ball diamonds in residential neighborhoods, and as such has declined to add lights. So we would question what's different between the City of Waterloo and the City of Kitchener. When we get to actual noise readings, while we recognize that our readings weren't done with city equipment, they were done just with an iPhone, and it only provides anecdotal evidence, it does speak to the noise spikes that happen during these games, and it's important to consider that city samples were taken over a 20 to 30 minute period. Our experience has been that in-game noise varies considerably depending on who's playing, how many diamonds are in use, and how many spectators are present. Our concerns are that crowds will be noisier, especially for Friday and Saturday late night games. The players will be older and the crowds may well be more enthusiastic. It's understandable that parents and supporters want to cheer on their players. Our concern is this noise is going to continue later and later into the evening. This is a residential neighborhood made up of families with small children and grandchildren, those who work from home, those who work shifts, those who commute, and this noise will be very disruptive to them. The next three slides, I'm going to go through them really briefly, but they speak to a previous proposal to install lawn bowling at Bright Up, which would have included lights. And as outlined on 3 slides, you can see the same concerns being raised now were being raised then as well. This one alludes to the previously stated concerns of residents to no overhead lights and a commitment of the city not to install lights. This one quotes the Lawn Bowling Club's president saying no lights after 10 p.m. They recognize issues around parking and congestion, and an acknowledgement that the lights would have a negative impact on rear yards. Further, I wanted to just follow up on something that was alluded to earlier around concerns around resident awareness of the state of this proposal. Delivery of letters to impacted residents notifying them of next steps at council was delayed. I myself did not receive my letter until Thursday evening. You were supposed to have registered as a delegate on Wednesday, the day prior, by 9 a.m. And while I recognize that, those people would have had a chance still to attend this session, if they can arrange for time off work, they would have had to rearrange their schedules on short notice. It is holiday season. It's tough for people to make that short turnaround time. So to recap, the residents of our neighborhood have a strong concern around traffic congestion, parking, and behavioral issues, but our most urgent concern is around in-game noise. We have some concerns with the integrity of the city data. We have serious concerns with the current ball diamond utilization as referred to by Ms. Moses, and the previous proposal from 1994 underscores all of these concerns. Councillors, I want to urge you to think long and hard about how you would want this issue handled if it were in your backyard, your neighborhood, and your home was being affected. In the end, this should not and cannot be a purely fiscal decision. This is about balance, and it's about balancing the needs of the sports field with the needs of the residents of our community. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. We do have some questions for you.
Sure.
Councillor Fernandez.
Actually, Angela, I don't have any questions because you've done such a great job of covering a lot of areas. And I just wanted to compliment you on your presentation. It was very succinct and very clear. You've challenged us to think about this as we would think about it if it was happening in our backyards. And I think that's very, very important. So, and thanks for all your engagement that you've done and for welcoming me to your home yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you to all the councillors that did make the trip out and who expressed an interest in learning more. We really do appreciate it. It made us feel heard.
Councillor Gazzola.
Can you tell me what street you live on?
Pardon me? I live on Union as well, straight across from Ball Diamond 1.
And again, I don't have any questions. I'm just amazed at how much work you people have done, you've really done a lot of research and a great deal of background, and you're even right up to date on the dismal season of the Blue Jays. So you really worked hard for your...
I think that speaks to our passion about this issue. We really want to reach a compromise or some sort of agreement that's going to allow us to continue to enjoy our yards and our outside time, as well as serve the community.
One more we have for you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Angela, for your presentation and for informing us about previous decisions that made by previous councils. I want to ask you just about, people listening might not understand why a little bit of cheering bothers the neighbors that are directly affected. Can you tell us a bit about your experience when you're in your home or in your yard?
Yeah. My husband describes it as death by 1,000 cuts, in that it's almost, or like Chinese water torture, you can think of it that way, because it's not a predictable noise. It ebbs and flows, and it's dependent upon, as I say, the level of play happening and the number of supporters in attendance. Mm-hmm. And at times, it is not noisy we're quite open to it. At other times, it spikes to levels that are quite disruptive. I was on the phone with my mother Saturday afternoon in my backyard, and she asked me twice while we were on the phone, "What is that in the background?" And I said, "That's the ball diamond. That's the noise from across the street," and she could hear it through the phone. Mm-hmm. We spend March to October in our backyard, as much time as we can, and it makes it difficult for us. Quite often we sit out there with headphones on, trying to block out some of the noise. It's difficult to read out there at times. It can just be challenging to enjoy it when you've got those spikes and the cheering and the yelling. There's people that are honking at each other as they depart, and they're waving goodbye, and I understand everybody's excited and pumped up from the game, but it's noisy. And this is at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. I have serious concerns about 11 p.m. And onward.
Okay, thank you very much again for your presentation.
Thank you.
We do have another question for
Sure.
you from committee. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, thank you for coming in and making your presentation. You live across the street on Union Boulevard there, right near Patty, I would assume. How long have you lived there?
I have lived there for 9 years.
When you moved in, would you anticipate that there would be all this noise at the time, or just total surprise after you moved in?
So we bought the house, we saw it in October, and we moved in December. We did note that there were no lights in the Ball Diamond, and we thought, well, isn't this wonderful? We have a forest behind us and a Ball Diamond across from us, and it'll be great. And I would say year one, it didn't really, it didn't really bother us that much, but incrementally, year over year, you hear the ping of the aluminum bat, you hear the kids chanting, you hear people coming and going out of their cars. I'm quite willing to deal with that during the day. I recognize it's a public park, I recognize it's a facility to be used by all. My challenge is, past bedtime for kids, in the evening, supper time, I would like to sit outside and enjoy a nice quiet evening.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We have another question. Mayor Verbanovic.
Thank you, if I can, and thank you for coming in. But just as a follow-up to that last question, you said in the first year it really didn't bother you, and then it sort of got worse. Did something change? Were there more games being played? Was there more use of the diamond? Did behavior change?
All I can offer is anecdotal evidence, and I would say year one didn't bother us. Perhaps it wasn't as loud, or perhaps we're just more aware of it. I will say that, as the season progresses and it gets more and more competitive and they get closer to tournament time, it's loud. Right, because they're invested in it. Year over year, whether it's increasing, I don't know. That would be a question for your KMBA folks or city staff. I just know that for us, we definitely notice the noise. We're willing to put up with it during the day, but in the evenings, I just feel it's unreasonable for residents to be exposed to that level of continuous noise. It's already 12 hours a day in some cases.
And to your knowledge, would most of the nearby neighbors to you be there around the same period of time as you've been, less period or longer?
There are quite a few people on this street. It's an older community, so there are people on the street that have been there quite a few years longer than us. Patty's been there about 8 years, and I think the gentleman on the other side just moved in, so he's a new neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Yaneski, you have another question?
No.
Okay. Thanks, Ms. Largabal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next delegate up is Ron Louisbrook. Welcome, Ron.
Thank you. We just have some of my stuff here. So thanks for listening. I appreciate you guys listening to what we have to say. So I don't have a lot of new facts. You guys have heard the information from your own staff as far as the different facts and things like that. So I'm not going to bring up a whole lot of brand new facts, some things to talk about. Everyone understands the importance of activity for kids, and baseball is a fantastic activity. I don't need to sell people on that either. It's great for the community. I think we have some folks here who are going to talk about the benefits of our kids learning sports, learning to be teammates, learning to work together. And some of the best people in our community come from a sporting background. If they're not involved in sports, they're involved in other things. If we don't have opportunity for them to participate in this sport, another sport, as the staff has said, this is bigger than one diamond, bigger than one sport. If we can't facilitate our kids playing high-level sports at all, they're going to do different things. And a lot of the things aren't good. I've heard some recent stories myself, and I won't tell them here because they're personal. Very tragic things that have happened to kids because they didn't have anything else to do. I'm not saying every kid's going to go that direction if they don't have sport, but it certainly helps. There was a point made about the numbers of kids that are coming in. Recently we were at 700. We just went over 1,000. I told my board a few years ago, I want to get over 1,000 kids. I think I can do that by 2020. Happened in a year and a half. Blue Jays, sure, that helps. But I also think parents are looking for something for their kids to do. Baseball's one thing. The growth from KNBA has happened with zero marketing. We're not even trying. We're building some programs so we can build good athletes. There's no lawn signs. There's no advertising on the radio because we know we can't. Because if we advertise, we'll get more and we have nowhere to put them. So that looks pretty bad on us if we say come and then, well, thanks for signing up, but we have nowhere to put you. I understand that any increase in activity is impactful to folks. I respect that, and KNBA respects that as well. I'm confident our marketing plan, we've sat down and talked to some folks, and I'm really confident we could get to 2,000 kids. We're at 1,000 now. We haven't touched the schools. We're not, like I say, we're not putting anything out there. So we did. I'm sure we can get to 2,000. And that's what we'd like to do. So we need help with that. We feel that the use of that space in the park it's a healthy use of space. It's positive social activity. I believe cheering for your kids is what you want. I believe council got a letter from another resident in that area recently, speaking of finding people sleeping on the bench right up number 2 after dark. There's going to be activity at that park at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, one way or the other. I would say you'd rather have a baseball game than some of the other things that can happen at a place like that at night, right? So I think it's a good use of the space. I think it's what we want our kids doing, and it's a very big question how we're going to deal with that. I think the studies in the summer that were done showed a lot of good behavior. I think there's examples of urination in the woods. I've seen it too. I saw a kid go over and do it. I didn't run over and stop him because I think that was inappropriate, but it is going to happen. We have a code of conduct. We've told that to our coaches. We told that to our players. We've sent it out. We're going to continue to enforce it. We did send a very strong worded email to all of our coaches saying drinking in the park, which is to me a big one, was immediate suspension from KNBA, immediate forfeiture of the game. We don't take it lightly. We don't have an enforcement staff, so it's hard for us to be there. And I can't say that everyone's going to abide by the things we say. But we are trying, and we will continue to push. We respect the neighbors. We want to be part of the community. We don't want to be a problem. We are community. We all have a neighborhood ourselves, so we want to be part of that. We're working closely with the city on the efficient use of the fields. We talked about fields that aren't used. The schedule is not balanced exactly. May, June, July. August is a little lower because it's playoffs. Some of the teams are going to tournaments. It is not an evenly distributed schedule, so you are going to see times when the fields aren't used and other times when it's very, very, very busy. Early in the season is where we need the most, May, June, July, because that's when teams need to practice. I don't want to get into arguing a lot of facts that were presented. The one that kind of hit me was I saw a decibel level of 108. The only fact, I looked it up quickly, a jet airplane taking off is 100 decibels. A rock concert is between 100 and 110. I've been at those fields a lot. I would love them to be that loud and that supportive. I don't know about that one, but I don't want to get too much into that. So we think it's important. We want to be very respectful at the Old. We have been respectful. We work hard with our community and our parents to do right by this. And this is a bigger question than just this one field, this one day. So that's what I've got for today.
Okay, thank you. We do have some questions for you, Ron. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Ron, for coming in today. Can you, for the benefit of everyone in the room, can you tell us your position? What's your role?
President of Kitchener Minor Baseball.
Okay, thank you. So, a couple things that I want to ask you about. First is, if lights were put in at Bright Up Ball Diamond, my understanding is that you have blanket bookings throughout the season. Like you just book the diamonds, not knowing for sure if they will be used. Is that correct? Like sometimes the schedules might change, like you said in the playoffs. You might have a diamond booked, but it ends up not being used. Is that correct?
That should be very seldom. A lot of the game bookings, like the House League season runs, they book their season. All the rep games are scheduled. They're very seldom rescheduled. Sometimes a team may cancel. We have to do some rescheduling. Those fields should always be rebooked by other teams and used. We are doing some improvements to our scheduling process. I know there's games sometimes where practice gets canceled by a team and they don't remember to tell anybody and then they don't show up. That has happened. But we want to repair that because we know we're short diamonds, and it's a shame. There's another team that's not practicing and using that field that could be, and that's an internal process on our part that we need that field availability to be known for other people so that they can take those diamonds. So there definitely are times where it's not used, but it shouldn't be that way, and there's people that want to use them, and there's some improvements on our side that need to be made to make sure
That definitely has seemed to be the trend this summer anyway. But I'm just wondering, would there be an ability for KMBA to make sure that there is a notification to the city so that when we have a booking for the diamond to be lit, that if it's not being used, that we can turn off the light right away? I want to understand KMBA's commitment to doing that if the lights were put in.
For sure. Yes, I actually had a conversation just last week with the staff around. I believe the city's putting a new software in place for scheduling of diamonds in Kitchener. I've agreed to actually be part of the beta testing on that to help make sure we have a connected program on our side that actually automates the delivery of the notification to the city. Right now, it's all done manually by people. Lots of volunteers, some paid office staff that have lots going on, so there are misses. I'm working on automating our side, and I'd like to work directly with the city on the program you're developing to actually directly connect those two things together. So, yes.
Okay. I mean, knowing that you had a chance this summer, this season, to try to mitigate some of the behaviors and the parking, and I'm trying to understand what measures have you taken? You did mention that you were trying to enforce, but I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, so on the drinking side, we were very clear.
I don't care about the drinking at this point. Of course I care, but I'm asking you about the more common behaviors, because honestly, we don't see a lot of drinking. Yeah, I'm asking you about like the urination. You saw a boy go to urinate, and you didn't stop him, but that concerns me. I'm wondering, why wouldn't you have talked to the parent, or why, if you know that the neighbors are concerned about that, why wouldn't you make an effort to mitigate that behavior?
That happened to be someone from a visiting city, so we have to get better at communicating to them. I did talk to their coach about it. I said, hey, can you please ask your guys not to do that? When I said I didn't go get the kid while he was sitting in the bushes.
That's fair enough. I understand that, but I'm just asking.
But I did talk to the coach saying, hey, could you watch that? They've been told it's in our code of conduct that's something that shouldn't happen, and we continue to enforce that or continue to talk about it. It's hard to control. As the neighbor said, it's hard to control human behavior, and we will continue to try, and we'll continue to enforce and ask for respect for everyone and our neighbors. And so we won't stop trying. We won't stop putting that out there. We won't stop enforcing that. It'll be a while till it's perfect, I imagine.
Yes. I mean, as a parent whose kids do participate in House League with KMBA, I can fully appreciate that. You're providing your chances for kids to play at a very reasonable rate, and it's great for the kids, and I appreciate that. What I'm trying to understand is, would there be any openness from KMBA to perhaps raise the fees slightly in order to be able to pay for an enforcement staff person to go to problem areas like Blythe Park to do spot checks and to enforce behaviors in a more sustained way?
Yeah, we certainly don't like raising fees. We fought that many times for various reasons. We wanted to keep affordable. If it becomes a necessity for making sure our kids can play, then yes, we'd have to do it. We've brought on several volunteers. We've been actively trying to engage more volunteers. We brought on someone to speak directly to parents this year. We've had lots of good conversations. Certainly we'd seek to make that a volunteer position first, because we don't want to raise fees. Are we open to raising fees to have an enforcement person there? If required, absolutely. We know we need this for the betterment of all the kids in the city. It has to happen. So if there is a fee required to make it happen, then we have to obviously vote on it. I can't speak for our board right now, but I would say yes, we have to look at it.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. We do have quite a few more questions for you. Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Thank you so much for coming in. Just trying to get an indication of how many teams are under the umbrella of the Kitchener Minor Baseball Association.
So I believe it to be of the Rep and Select side, that would be 25 Rep and Select teams, about 12 members each, and that's just on the Rep and Select side. On the House League side, Carol? 126 combined with Waterloo, so it's about 50-50 as far as the division.
Okay. Could you maybe explain to me the distances that teams would travel from to get to Kitchener and vice versa? So in the Rep and Select, sure. What are the distances? What towns? And
most of the play. I mean, I'll leave tournaments out because then they can come from anywhere in Ontario or the U.S. But the typical play is within what we call the inter-county: Guelph, Stratford, Waterloo, Cambridge. London does play, Simcoe does play, but those are the main. It's the furthest sort of local would be, I'm guessing, Stratford, Woodstock area.
Okay. You just want to get a little grip on that because the scheduling times of the games have to include the ability for teams to travel from their center to come to Kitchener.
That's correct.
So a game at 5 o'clock would probably not be
a game at 5 o'clock, and with Rep baseball, typically the teams need to be there an hour early.
Yeah.
So that's the standard, and maybe they would do 45 minutes for if we were earlier day. So yeah, the teams have to start arriving at 4:15, 4 o'clock.
Okay. Now, you spoke of the Kitchener Minor Baseball Code of Conduct.
Okay.
On the Rep and Select teams, do they have a further Code of Conduct in most cases?
We have one, it's blanket for everyone as far as behaviors. The Rep and Select teams may have their own expectations because it's a more intense level of baseball, so they have expectations around the code of those players. Some may have their own individual codes, but KNBA has a single code applied across the board.
Okay. We did hear some concerns about music, amplified music. I know sometimes teams, play some music as they're warming up to help them loosen up a bit. Is that something that you would feel comfortable putting a rule in place saying, after a certain time, no amplified music?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. There's two teams there that I knew were playing it. We told them both to stop. If it's still happening, I apologize for that. I mean, we need to understand exactly when that's happening. We would ask them to stop. Everyone's complied immediately and said they would stop doing it. I mean, the kids do like it, but it's understood. Yes.
Okay. And when you schedule a period for a game time, I'm assuming it's a 9-inning game?
That's 7 mostly.
7, okay, 7. So would you schedule for the maximum time of that game?
Yeah, we'd schedule for, sometimes there's time limits. If we had lights at the diamond, there would have to be a time limit placed on the games, and that's fairly standard. No inning after an hour and 45, and then there's other centers, and we don't have this, but there's other centers we could institute this, which is an absolute stop at a certain time. Mm-hmm. Usually 2 hours and 15 minutes for a 7-inning games is fair as a complete stop time. Mm-hmm. So if you did 1 hour and 45 minutes, no new inning, 2:15 is absolute, the lights are going to go out, so you've got to go. We've played that before. I mean, that's something that we can put in place as required.
Do you have a mercy rule where if a team's so far ahead of the other team, then the game ends?
Yes.
So there's a potential for a game to end early?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
No problem.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, most of my questions have been asked, but I just want to learn a little bit more about Kitchener Minor Baseball. Mm-hmm. You currently have 1,000 participants, and you have a goal of going to 2,000.
I'd say we can get there if we did some marketing we tried to push. That would be something I would say, and again, this is not scientific at all. This is me saying, based on what I believe we could do, if we really marketed this thing, I would say we could get there within 5 years.
Yeah. Where were you 10 years ago? Where were you physically?
If I go back 10 years ago,
where was your organization? What kind of participation?
I'd say about 500 or so, 10 years ago.
So you've
people behind me that can check the numbers.
Yeah. Who? You really have two categories. You've got Rep and Select, and the House League, who would benefit from the floodlights? Which division?
The House League would be playing there, some of their games, so they'd benefit from being able to play on those nicer fields, which is nice for them. The real benefit is the availability of practice fields. So our rep and select players would have the chance to practice. We just completed a parent survey recently that they've been coming in. We've got about 130 responses. I would say out of the 130 responses, 85% mentioned a lack of ability to practice because we have no fields for kids to practice on. If you've played rep sports, you know the importance of practice. It's like you wouldn't have a hockey team and then say, there's absolutely no practice ice available for you. All you can do is play games. Baseball, we're forced to do that quite a bit. So the rep and select teams would benefit the most from the ability to do practices. The House League also, because they would have a chance to play on the bright up fields, which is a big bonus for them.
Yeah, but you answered the question the way I thought it would be, that the rep and select would get the biggest benefits out of lights.
They have the most games.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you, if you double your participation, you currently have 25 rep and select teams, won't that remain constant?
That will. I would say, well, no, not necessarily true. 8 years ago, we do things at different levels. We have Tier 1, Tier 2, and now, about 10 years ago, we only had Tier 1 teams. So we had about 8 rep teams and a few select teams. We've since put a whole new level of baseball. If you know about hockey, they have AAA, AA, single A, 2 MDs. We've started 2 developmental teams this year at certain levels. So now we have 3 teams at some levels. We're looking to bring in 2 more next season. So we're looking to go from a 1-level system, we've gone to a 2-level system, we're looking to go to a 3-level system, and then we'll expand that to a 4-level system if we get to those numbers. So the number of kids that would be involved in the Rep and Select program would probably double as well. So it is the Rep and Select because they need the practices. House League probably should practice more as well, but they have a different level of commitment to the sport. So the House League players would definitely benefit from having more fields, but the Rep players would benefit, and we'd be able to vastly increase the number of players that can participate at a rep level and get more development in the game.
Yeah, having spent 30 years with Kitchener Minor Hockey, I understand that.
Yeah, we like to get more kids playing at a competitive level so they can develop further.
But I have a feeling, though, if you're going to double your participation, the bulk of it is going to come from House League.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you very much. Then.
No problem.
Okay, Councillor Yaneski.
Thank you for your presentation, and a number of questions have already been asked that I had in mind. And just as a comment as an aside, my 2 sons did play minor baseball back in their pre-teen days for a few years, and they enjoyed it. So I can understand as a parent what the feeling is when you're cheering your team on and your kids for winning, or let's come back from a losing position. Anyways, what other diamonds do you use in Kitchener that have lights?
We use Lions.
Lions?
So Lions, Rosenberg, and Jack. We don't use Jack Couch much. A few teams play there. The Rosenberg diamonds and the Lions diamonds are basically the main ones we use. And Rosenberg, because those are younger kids, we just started this year 1 night a week using the lights at that field for a 7:30 game. Lions is it's a bigger field for older kids, so they can stay out later. So that's really the only main one we use right now that has lights.
So of the Rosenberg, the Lions, and the Bright Up, which are the better facilities?
Lions is a grass infield, so Lions would be equivalent to what Bright Up is. Rosenberg is a stone dust infield, it's a nice field, but it's not the same level of quality as a Bright Up is. And it's smaller. You can't fit anyone over the Mosquito at that diamond, so the Pee-wees and Bantams can't play there.
Right. And the age group of the kids who play are from what age to what age, roughly?
Pardon? Sorry, I missed that.
The age group of all the kids in minor hockey are from minor baseball are from what age to what age?
The youngest birth year this year was 2010 with some 11s, so those would be 7-year-olds is the youngest. Going up to our midget ends at 18, although we're just working with the Panthers now to get junior baseball back, which goes up to 21, but for KNBA, it goes up to 18.
18. Then after that, they're on their own and
After that, you can play junior
leagues
baseball
or
to
whatever.
21, and then you're on your own. There's lots of things to do, but Kitchener minor baseball doesn't take care of you anymore, no.
Right, right. I had another question here and I just now forgot. Let me go with somebody else.
Councillor Fernandez?
Yes, Ron, just one quick question. Of course, if we put the lights in, it would benefit your organization 6 nights a week. If there was some kind of a compromise and games were allowed to be played under the lights on Friday and Saturdays, which would not affect people's work schedule, sleep times, or school sleep times, would that help increase your growth that you want to do, or would it be a bit tenuous?
Friday and Saturday only?
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday aren't ideal days because a lot of teams are at tournaments. The main league play happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then our teams and all other rep teams, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is mostly for tournaments. We'd like to host more tournaments as well, so there will be games on the fields those days. But the main league play happens Monday to Thursday, so that's when teams need to come here and get those games in. And that's when most of our practices would occur for our teams on the other diamonds that will become available, because tournament weekends are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that wouldn't be harmful. We would certainly use Friday, Saturday as well, but the weekdays are pretty important because of that. That's when teams are around.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that, and certainly I was just trying to, as I was listening to the residents, trying to see if you could have some increased growth by using nights that would not affect residents' work schedules or kids going to school kind of thing in the sleep hours. Okay, that's all I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Councillor Davey?
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Just one question, just trying to keep track of your growth rate. I did hear that one of the measures you've taken was to sort of cut out practicing from the league. Question, have you had to turn away any players yet?
I believe we turned away somewhere between 10 and 15 last season.
So you're already at the point where we're turning children away from...
We are, and we're getting pretty creative in our use of fields. For our rookie fields, we end up having to rent fields at Play Ball Academy in order to run one night a week there. They obviously are a more expensive facility for us to be using fields from as opposed to a city field. So we've actually relocated summer games to an indoor facility during the summer, which isn't ideal obviously for the players because now they're inside in the summertime, and it's not ideal from a fee perspective because we are getting creative in how we're doing things. And yeah, if the numbers keep growing, and like I said, we're actually controlling the numbers by not really telling anybody about our program. Like, we're not marketing whatsoever, so we expect growth to continue. The younger ages especially the young kids are really excited by this and they keep coming. But yeah, we're pretty much at capacity as far as what we can handle.
So effectively, all else being equal, if there is an additional diamond growth, and obviously you're not marketing actively, the more demand that is increased, the more children are going to be turned away.
Yeah, I believe we're at our capacity right now.
Thank you.
Mayor Verbanovic?
Thank you, and thanks for coming in and sharing some of your perspectives with us. One quick question, sort of building on the idea of looking, are there some creative ways to address some of the concerns? From your perspective, if the diamonds were lit, could we have a scenario, would it be workable, where the games that get played in the earlier 2 hours, and the practices, in fact, when you're booking practice time, happen in the later 2 hours? Because that would minimize cheering, because I don't imagine there's a lot of cheering going on in practice. Maybe a few curse words, but that's about it. And secondly, it would also half the number of people that would be there, or probably even more than half the number of people there. Would that be a possible workable solution?
Practices are quieter. I would say if there's a game and a practice scheduled for that night, the practice would be the later one. That would only make sense. I think we try to use those fields for games more than we do for practice. Practices happen at the lower quality fields.
Gotcha.
But certainly, yes, we would certainly look at if that was a use of a game and a practice on the same night, we would do the practice later. For that reason, makes sense. I hadn't really thought of it, but practices are quieter unless the coach is upset about something.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Yaneski.
I finally thought of that question when I asked you. On Diamonds 1 and 2, you basically have tournaments and your rep teams play there. Is that the top teams that you would have from different age levels?
Yes.
And of the proportion of the time that the Diamonds are used, how many of them are used for play within the league, within the Kitchener teams versus out-of-town teams?
So during the week, it's always a Kitchener team versus an out-of-town team. So there's always a Kitchener team on the Diamonds Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Occasionally if we have a tournament, and this last weekend we had our inter-county playoffs where all the cities were involved in one tournament, so then there may not be a Kitchener team in a particular game. But typically there's a Kitchener team involved. If there's a game on that Diamond, there's a 95% chance there's a Kitchener team participating in it.
Okay. When those out-of-town teams come, I mean, you can control the teams within your league in terms of sending out notices to the coaches and the managers of behavior and everything else.
Yep.
How do you deal with teams from out of town in terms of letting them know, hey, we come here, we like to respect, just like your teams, if they go to Woodstock or London, show some respect to those neighborhoods and communities. How does that work?
You can certainly send notices to those cities. We do receive them from other centers every once in a while. We've seen things like, please don't park at the church, or things like that from other centers. We could certainly issue those sorts of things to folks saying, hey, when you come, please park here. That's fairly normal behavior. I don't think we've done a ton of it, to be honest. I don't think we've engaged the other centers that are coming to visit with us to the same degree we've sent out notifications to our own teams. So that's certainly a step that we absolutely should take and would take, and I would imagine that would be something that would be a requirement from council for us to do that, and we'd be able to show you the communication that goes out. Our coaches can be involved in making sure that the other coaches are aware that you're playing here, this is our community, so please respect it. I don't think that's unreasonable, and we've seen other communities with those same requests from us.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Marsh.
Just a follow-up question to when you were answering a question of Councillor Gazzola and then of the mayor, I heard two different things, and I'm just hoping you can clarify.
Sure.
So my understanding is that the lights, if they were installed, would mostly benefit the rep and the select teams, so that they could play and practice. But then you were saying that you're not sure how many practices would be happening on these lit fields when you answered the mayor's question. So help me understand.
Yeah.
What are these fields that are lit later going to be used for? Games or practices or both?
They will be used for both, mostly games. And when I say that the availability of those diamonds for games allows more practice because it relocates a team that might be elsewhere playing, now that field that they moved their game from can be used for a practice by another team. So it's a bit of a backfill situation. Okay. We like to use those fields for games because they're the better fields, but they do have practices there as well if they're not used for games that night.
Okay. And how long would a typical practice be for a rep team?
2 hours.
Pardon? 2
hours is typical.
Okay, 2 hours. And and so if it were to be that there were, like you said, a game and a practice in the same night, would you always be scheduling the practice for the later time?
Some based on team availability, if that's fine. I imagine yes. There may be a day where there's field availability, the team's not available, so it would be opposite, but it does make sense to do it the other way around, to get the game earlier.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Look at it.
One additional thing, I just, you're on the hot seat, and I appreciate that. So I apologize, that this is, I'm trying to understand the KMBA's willingness to do things like request out-of-town visitors to respect the neighbors. You had that opportunity already. It's not like we wrote it in the contract, but you had that opportunity when you heard that the neighbors around these ball diamonds were upset about the parking and about the behavior. And if you didn't go to the extra step of sending an email to the visiting teams yet, do we have to put it in the contract for you to do it? Like, help me understand, what doesn't KMBA want to put your best foot forward, you know, to show that you're willing to work with the concerns of the neighbors?
Yeah. Yes, and we absolutely do. And if I say that we haven't put together a communication to everyone, that's certainly a miss on our part. We are...
That's fair enough. I'm putting you in the hot seat, but
it's okay.
I'm pointing out that I'm just wondering why hasn't that happened. And I understand that this is a volunteer-based organization, and so, but that's something that we would have expected. That I personally would have liked to see. But
and I agree. And you put the point on, it is a volunteer organization, and there's a lot. There's a lot that we do, building the programs. So we do miss things. This is probably one where it's like we should have gone out and been more proactive with those other organizations and said this must happen. I would put the miss on myself for not pushing that, but it is a strictly volunteer organization, and the amount of hours that I do, but so many other people do. I don't want to. I'm not going to throw anyone under a bus to say this person missed it. There is so much work that we put into this. Hours and hours. This is likely one that we need to tidy up to say this stuff's important, guys. Let's get this done. So all on that one. That should have been done earlier.
And so we don't necessarily want to be prescriptive in our relationships with long-standing partners like KMBA, but maybe we need to be in order to make sure that the residents' concerns are being. That's more of a comment than a question. So anyway,
that's probably fair in this situation because of the concerns and because of the long-term impacts here to make sure that everyone is covered to ensure that we're doing our jobs, because we should be doing that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry. How
many hours do you put in on this work on average in a week? I was just curious.
Personally, I'm good for about 20 hours a week.
Thank you.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions for you today, Ron.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
We do have two more delegations just to note to the committee, and our next delegate is Bill Pegg. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. So I'm here today with my good friend and colleague Bob McKillop, and we prepared something which I'm going to read, and I had a little section in here about review. I'm not going to go through that. I think everything, in terms of what staff has done and why the need for the lighting, etc. So I'm going to just skip by that. But first of all, I have a couple of other previous examples that both Bob and I were involved with, him on one and me more on the second one, and that was back in 92-93, KMBA executive put forward a proposal to put lights at Lions number 2. There was a considerable pushback from the local homeowners beyond the left field fence, if you can picture that diamond. All of the same arguments, and I mean all of the same arguments, were used then at committee meetings like this, because I was at them. Bob was at them. None of the worries came to pass. In fact, all of the questionable behavior and shenanigans that were taking place at Lions Park after dark essentially ceased once we started playing baseball there until 11 o'clock at night. And we doubled the use of that diamond. We went from playing 1 game a night to 2 games a night. Combination of both rep. Someone asked about the split between, Councillor Marsh, it might have been you, about the split between rep and House League. It was a combination of rep games and House League games. We didn't practice there because it was too expensive. Not going to use lights to practice. So, that was then. Fast forward to 2006, I got the chance to stand here several times regarding the bingo situation, where we were moving from downtown to Kirk Street. Again, we heard all the same arguments, including big traffic and noise, car doors slamming, and of course we also heard about vandalism and graffiti because of those people that were coming from downtown out to Kirk Street. Those people. It should be noted, and if you went and talked to Harold Frewer today or Bill Kieswetter at Frewer Homes, the vandalism and graffiti at the Kirk Street Plaza came to a 100% halt after we moved in. They have not had vandalism and graffiti at the Kirk Street Plaza since the bingo hall moved in there. So, kids, baseball, sports. With Bob and I, in addition to, which time have I got? 2 minutes, good. In addition to our association with the Kitchener Panthers and Kitchener Minor Baseball, we belong to the Kitchener Sports Association. And the tagline KSA uses is true sportsmen. Sportsman is an old term, of course. True sportsmen make good citizens. That line was coined nearly 70 years ago, and it's just as true today, if not more so. Just as true then as it is today, if not more so. Among many of the city's obligations to the residents of the community, the people who are sitting here with us, one of the most important, perhaps the most important, is to provide necessary recreational infrastructure for arenas, pools, community entertainment centers, walking parks, trails, and sports fields. When it comes to sports fields, the main beneficiaries are kids. That's what makes the city a great place to live. With this leisure infrastructure at our disposal, the obligation on minor baseball, and even the Kitchener Panthers, is to simply use everything as much as we can every day. The taxpayers have paid taxes to build these diamonds, so why wouldn't we want to use them to their maximum? Finally, there's no sweeter music to our ears than the sounds of kids at play. At a sport event with their parents, siblings, extended family, present to cheer them on. Breda Park has been a venue of literally thousands of ball players for decades. Lighting at this facility is long overdue. To repeat, and with respect to the neighborhood, the baseball diamonds don't belong to the Breda residents. They belong to the whole community. And in particular, minor baseball players, whether they're with KMBA or other minor baseball organizations. Doubling the evening use of 2/3 of this facility will allow those of us involved in baseball to continue to fulfill our obligation, helping to shape these kids into the good citizens that KSA talks about. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, we do have some questions for you.
All right.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Bill, thanks for coming in. Could you, just for the room here, explain your position with the Kitchener Panthers?
I'm the president of Kitchener Panthers and president of KSA.
Okay. Looking through the Kitchener Panthers roster, I notice there are 6 players from Kitchener, 6 from Waterloo, 2 from Cambridge, 3 from Guelph. That's a very high local contingent of players.
It's the highest in the league.
Highest in the league. So from the Kitchener Panthers' perspective, how important is Kitchener minor baseball to the development of future players for the Panthers?
It's huge, and it always has been. Always has been. The last time we won the championship in 2001, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, I think every player except one?
That's right.
Except one was a Kitchener or Waterloo homegrown player.
Okay. Now, I just wanted to get that point out, too, because over the years, being a Kitchener resident, seeing some of the guys that I grew up with playing for the Panthers, I just wanted to make sure that that was an absolute concern for a good local talent for you. Thank you.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks, Bill, for coming in. And actually, this isn't a question to you, but I have to compliment the young gentlemen who are sitting in this gallery today. I know you must be bored out of your minds, and I really think you should be. I already saw one mom leave with her son. I don't know if you guys are coming down to speak to us, but truly, if this is an example of the behavior, you guys deserve huge kudos. So I apologize for taking time from your presentation to say this.
It's more boring than a practice.
Thank you. I don't know if they're coming down, but if they are, I'll speak to them then.
Okay, thanks, Bill. That's all we have for you. Bob McKillop. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of council, it's a pleasure to be able to be here today. I've spent my entire life in minor sport. Minor sport as a player, as a coach, as an administrator. 35 years of that have been with Kitchener Minor Baseball, as its president for 8 years. I was the person that represented Kitchener Minor Baseball in the negotiations and the original transfer at Bright Up Park from soccer to baseball. I was the one that was there when we put the lights in at Lions. We had this type of meeting for each of those. I have a great respect for the neighbors, for what goes on where they live. Kitchener Minor Baseball has a history of working with the neighbors and of coming to an agreement where both of us come out as winners. The city of Kitchener has a tremendous reputation across this country and in fact in North America for how it represents itself when it travels. It does so because of its volunteers, these people that are sitting here today, in all our minor sport groups, and the rules and regulations that we have with our groups. Our groups travel well because they're representing themselves, their families, their team, and their city. And we make sure that they know that. So that when we travel, we don't want to cause any trouble. When somebody comes to our park and they cause some trouble, we tell them you're causing trouble, and if you don't like the way we like it, you can leave. There's all sorts of examples. In fact, people follow Kitchener Minor Baseball and how it handles that. And I think that's something you should know. The other thing I think that needs to be said here is that we've worked a tremendous amount in trying to find practice facilities. Right now we're trying to increase the area in behind the Bright Up Center where the batting cage is and move it out so that there's an infield area there so that we don't have to use a diamond to practice on. When you practice, one of the things you do is you try to hit the ball out of the park. And you hit many more balls out of the park in practice than you do in a game. And there are many windows across the street at Union Street. That's not something we would like to see happen. That's why we're trying to practice in the other cages and keep those diamonds open for play. I respectfully request that you favorably consider this that is before you. It allows us to operate a program at the maximum ability. It allows us to have more kids playing, and the reason we're in this is for kids. And we're not in this to win championships. We're in this so that there's better kids that become better citizens. And I know many of you that are sitting around this table have been through our program, and I hope that you will help us continue that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We do have a couple questions for you. From committee, Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, thank you for coming in and making your presentations, and congratulations for spending so many years and contributing to the sport of baseball. That's quite a contribution. You indicated that in Bright Up, from going back many years ago, the fields changed from soccer fields to baseball fields? Is that correct?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
How did that happen?
No, when?
1983.
And why did that happen? Well, I guess it's probably maybe a staff question, but you would have been involved, so provide a little bit of background.
It was a great discussion with minor soccer. They needed to a dual field. We needed a baseball field of higher level. We presented a plan where 2 diamonds would fit in the 1 soccer field. We took the soccer goal post that was on the Oakwood end of the field and brought it 30 feet away from the neighbor that lived at the corner there. And soccer and the city and all of us agreed. The city offered, Kim, you'll have to help me here, the city or somebody, the city offered soccer another piece of land. Might have been Bud. But they offered them another piece of land where they could move to, and that we could have these quality, what are now called A diamonds.
So these diamonds that we have right now were built as quality diamonds right from the start, back in '83?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your long-standing understanding of the history of KMBA. Do they have a bench yet with your name at the Bright Up Park?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Is there a bench dedicated with your name on it yet?
There is.
Okay.
They must have had nobody left when they got there.
No, I'm sure it was one of the first. I know I was there when the one for Bill Pegg was installed. So I just want to, it gives me some hope for you to tell us that KMBA has set the bar for working with the neighbors. Can you tell me, based on your understanding of what KMBA has done so far to work with the neighbors at Bright Up Park, was there room for improvement there? What else could have been done?
One of the things initially that happened was that when people left the park, as you come down out of the park, you come down a hill at the end, and if you're going to turn right onto Union, people came out there driving like idiots. And one of the things we did is we spoke, the lady came to us, told us that this was not good. There's going to be an accident. They're going to have something happen. She was absolutely right. We met with our groups. We met with our teams to put a parent in charge of when they left. In fact, one team prohibited people from leaving that way. They had to go the other way. And of course, parents are going to say, I'm not doing that. But all you have to do is implement that once, and the problem will cease. The big thing that we did initially, and I'm sure would happen again, was that when there was a person who was the head of the committee, and that person and I met weekly. The first 2 weeks, there were concerns. We dealt with those concerns. After that, I don't remember a meeting.
Sorry, what was that regarding? Which concerns? Was that at Bright Up Park?
That was at Bright Up Park.
There were neighbor concerns about behaviors and such, or?
The concerns were, as of now, noise. At that time, the big thing was that you had a ghetto blaster, and teams would come with a ghetto blaster, and in their warm-up, you'd have this ghetto blaster blasting.
Right.
We eliminated that. That was easy.
Sure.
Kids didn't like it, because see, now they can put them in their ears and you don't hear it, so.
Okay, well, thank you so much again for coming in.
Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I did compliment the other side of the issue and how hard the people have worked. I have to offer my compliments and that of our community to not only yourself, but also to Mr. Pegg. You've done a great deal in the community for not only minor baseball, but you've been very active in minor hockey and even more senior, the Panthers and all that. So we do really, I think the people in this community appreciate what you've done over the past 20, 30, 40 years. How long is it? Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no further questions for you, Bob, but I also want to echo those comments. Thank you for everything that you gentlemen do. Councillor Marsh.
Yes, I have a letter from a resident who was unable to be here today, and I'm wondering if I might read it out on their behalf.
Sure, quickly, please.
Okay, I'll read quickly. Dear council members, my name is Hannah Chessel, and I live at 18 Sunset Place. Due to my work schedule, I am not able to attend either this committee on the 21st nor council on the 28th meetings on this issue. My backyard is directly behind the baseball diamonds, and the in-game noises at night would not be amenable to my work schedule. I work exhaustive hours on construction sites and look forward to peace and quiet in my home and backyard. When there are games in progress, especially tournaments, the in-game noise is excessive and disruptive. I purchased this home understanding the implications of daytime noises associated with the diamonds, but without the knowledge the noise would continue at night. The decision to light the diamonds will affect my family and other families surrounding the park in a negative way. I do not think it is fair for a residential community to bear the burden of nighttime noise and distracting lights due to inept planning of Kitchener's future baseball needs. Having lights 70 feet tall and cheering until 11 p.m. on school nights is absolutely unacceptable. We chose this neighborhood for its family-friendly atmosphere and beautiful park. My partner and I are a young couple currently planning our family, and I cannot fathom how the late-night cheering and noise will affect a baby in our nursery. An additional frustration of this process has been the poor planning of booked games currently at the Baseball Diamonds. This summer, there were many early evenings of ideal weather, including entire weekends in which the Diamonds were not being used at all. We had been led to believe these fields were at a maximum usage capacity when they clearly are not. KNBA has, in my opinion, not come close to proving additional games are necessary into the night, and have instilled little faith in my believing this is the best path forward, contrary to the report. Perhaps the funds are best spent in improving and managing booking software. I strongly feel that this residential neighborhood full of families and hardworking individuals should not have to tolerate excessive baseball noise past 9 p.m. I truly appreciate the time the councillors and city employees have taken to working on non-noise issues. Kitchener is an amazing community that I am proud to live in, and hope you will vote in favor of avoiding nighttime noise in my house and backyard. Please do not make a purely financial decision when choosing how to expand baseball inventory, because nighttime play in our residential area affects us deeply. Thank you very much. Hannah Chessel.
Okay, we have no further questions, or do we have questions to staff? Do we have questions to staff? Is that okay? Mayor Urbanovic.
Thank you. I do have some questions of staff. I also want to alert committee. I'm not going to go through and read the entire letter, but there was also a letter forwarded to us from another nearby resident in the area who wrote to council, and that letter was forwarded to us this morning from staff, another nearby resident who is urging us to light the park. So I think it demonstrates there's a variety of opinions there. I guess my first question to staff is with respect to the issue of the scheduling and this notion that the diamonds aren't being fully utilized now. Do we have a sense of why that is? Have we factored that into the report that's here? And is there things we can do to better utilize the facilities?
Sorry, Ms. Kugler. Go ahead.
Through you, Chair. So scheduling is at the heart of this. There are a number of challenges that happen with outdoor sports, specifically when you have a season like this one with the rain. There are a number of games that are scheduled, and when they're scheduled, decisions have to be made in time to give teams that are coming in from out of town the opportunity to not attend a game that's going to be canceled. So those decisions are often made at 2 o'clock, and from that time and that decision that's made, the weather can change, and then it may end up being unutilized because the team couldn't come in. I think what Ron alluded to is the ability for us to look at interphasing some of those times, so that if it was not used for a game purpose, they could send out notification to some of their other teams to make use of that field time for practice. It's not been something that we've had in the past. We can't control the weather. I think the second part of scheduling is also not only do the teams have to make that decision, but our staff that actually maintain the fields also have to make a decision on safety. So if the fields have taken a lot of rain, it may be the hottest, driest day, but those fields may not be in playable condition. And so communicating that and keeping some stats on that information has been a little bit of a challenge for us to actually, but that's one of the pieces that we're trying to do through our new software. I think that it's also important to understand that with scheduling, there is a need for House League, Rep, and Select. And we know that the primary season for baseball is May, June, and then the early part of July. The reality is that we don't have enough fields for those time periods. There will be some ebbs and flow once you get into the July and August months and even into September as those teams teeter off throughout that registration. What we're really trying to do is utilize our best fields so that the fields that are less desirable are the ones that are not played on. And when I say less desirable, it's about fitting the right play to those fields. So they may not have the right running distance, they may not have the diamond dimensions, so there's a number of things. It's not for choice, and we really only have a number of fields that actually have the field distances, the infrastructure from the safety fences and some of the other screens that are involved, and it is the best way to utilize inventory. There's lots of conversation about ebbs and flow of sport. The ability to turn on and off lights of an existing facility is the best utilization of that facility. For when the trends change, it's very easy to disconnect or turn off that light switch, as opposed to having other inventory that's then not utilized and having to be maintained for that potential growth again. This is not, this is a short-term solution. We know that our need for outdoor fields is great, not only from baseball, and right now it's really just minor ball that's been in this discussion, but there are a number of other sports that also can use that growth and will be part of that strategy to figure out how we're going to get 6 additional fields within the next 5 years within a very tight budget and within a very tight area of land that we have available to us.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. Probably only have time for one, and I'll buzz in again. In the timings that are being contemplated, is there a scenario that a game can go into numerous extra innings, and how would we handle those situations?
So currently we are working with the organizations on what they can do as far as length of play, and we're trying to look at that within. So Kitchener-Meyer Baseball has been the first that's actually gone to their organization to get approval to shorten the length of their game so that they can control where that last inning starts. And that's some of the work that's gone into trying to tailor down the schedule for the use of the lights up right up.
So there would be no circumstances where it goes beyond 10:45?
The times that we have actually worked out have been put through to the organizations and as well as the groups, and that's the extent that, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll go buzz in again.
Okay. Councillor Yaneski.
In your staff report, specifically on page 1315, Appendix C, and also goes on to the next page, 16. You've identified location in your title, overall counts, control baseball indifference. Could you explain what you mean by control baseball? Difference, I guess, is between the two. What does that all mean?
Kugler? Through the chair, the control was done in late April before baseball games were being booked. Baseball indicates counts that were done during the season, and the purpose of that was to isolate what impact baseball was having to parking in the general neighborhood. And the difference is just the difference between the control and the baseball season.
The difference is what, sorry, the last part?
It's just the difference between what was counted in the baseball season and what was counted in the control. And that's the isolation of the baseball impact.
And so that's identified for all those playing fields?
Sorry, I missed that.
That's what you've got for all those playing fields?
Yes, so they were further, 13, 16, 13, 17, just more detail is provided on weekdays, weekends, and so on.
Okay. Help me understand. I played baseball for a number of years, Industrial League, 20 years in fastball. Played different diamonds throughout the city, including Woodside Park and Fisher Park. And those diamonds are no longer there. And those were lit diamonds. Why were they eliminated if we have such a need?
Through you, Chair. So I would say that as sports have trended and activity has happened, Fisher Holman Park was opted to make a change in regards to skate park and some other amenities there. At the time, the baseball numbers and the growth were not in that forecast. And I think even the size and our growth of population were very different. So at the time, those were the decisions made for the best use of the land on both Woodside and Fisher. I think you heard earlier Bob McKillop refer to the early days when it was soccer at Bright Up Park, and in lieu of a new facility for soccer, they were able to free up that space and then made space for baseball. So I would just say that it's looking at the land that was available and the infrastructure that was available at the time, and the growth of each individual sport, and baseball would have been at a slower growth at that time.
Yet the stat that you showed here in the report, the levels over the last few years of it sort of up and down, to try to find it. Rhonda, it was on your presentation, PowerPoint. The diamonds only got removed for the skate park in Fisher Holman and Queens Boulevard. I mean, that park just opened up the skateboard like just 2 years ago. And Woodside Park, I think it was just a few years before that. I mean, it's only just recent. It's not as if it happened a long time ago. So I'm gathering that there seems to be an upward swing in terms of baseball, yet a couple of big good diamonds were removed. And I understand your answer, but I'm still puzzled.
Is that a question?
Yes.
So I would defer to answer at this point until I can actually speak with the staff that actually were involved in the decisions for the use of those properties at the time. My area of focus is actually from the user and the use of facilities and the allocation, so I need to do more work on the land side.
Number one, who's number one? Okay, that's been clicked off, sorry. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, actually, I had a number of questions when answered, and I also was curious about the Forest Hill, Queens Boulevard, because living in that neighborhood, it seemed to me be very active and a lot of games, a lot of night games, and the beauty of it was that it was really somewhat distant from residential properties. But I gather you're going to come back with a little more information. I'd also like, if possible, on 13.2, you give a chart where you show how you've made your decision. Is it possible to get a little more detail? Your chart really just shows some checks and crosses. Is it possible to get a little more detail for next Monday? Answer quick, I'm losing my time here. A yes or no?
Through you, Chair, we can certainly provide more details. Some of the details provided in the financial information, but we can elaborate on that.
Okay, thank you. You also talk on 13.2 about 3B diamonds. Where are the B diamonds? What are they?
Mr. Paris.
Through the Chair, the 3 B-level diamonds we've targeted preliminary would be Voisin Park, Rittenhouse Park.
Wait, Voisin Park?
Yep.
Which is where?
It's in Ward 5. Thank you. I was just trying to see if it was 5 or 4. Voisin Park, Rittenhouse Park, and Green Gable Park would be the 3 identified.
Green what?
Green Gable Park.
Okay. Also, in 13.3, you talk about trends within diamond sports. Can you just expand a little bit on that?
So I'll speak to the trends in baseball, and so
30 seconds, you get it.
So there are an uptake in it, and it's not, there's 2 trends. One was related to baseball and the success of the Jays, but the significant one is the growth in the community. Baseball is one of those affordable sports, and so there is uptake. And as kids get involved, they stay in it as adults, and we also right now, we're talking about the youth, but we have a number of adults that we cannot accommodate to play because we don't have the field space for them.
Okay, thanks. I also want to refer to Upper Canada Park. What are we going to do there? And how will it impact what we're doing?
Mr. Paris?
So at Upper Canada Park, we are essentially realigning the existing fields, the existing diamonds, and that's going to come forward actually to Council September 11th for...
Are we looking at lights there?
Not currently, no.
No, but is that an area that can be considered for lights?
Through the chair, yes, we are planning for lighting those diamonds in the future through conduit installation in this current phase.
Okay. Kitchener Minor Baseball gets a grant from the city. Is that based, do they get cheaper ball diamonds or?
Through you, Chair, there is, so right now, youth do see a little bit of a discount from adult play, but there has not been a full comprehensive review of those fees in a number of years.
Will it change if and when we would put lights at Bright Up? Because that's obviously more expensive, is it not?
Through you, Chair, so the consideration of adding new fields as well as lighting in fields that we currently have are part of the analysis that will be in those fees and charges. So whether it's buying land and doing new fields or developing lights, it has to be a bigger comprehensive review of all the fees for outdoor sports.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Earlier this year, Councillor Davey and I were involved in discussions with the Stanley Park Optimist Club, who operate blast ball and t-ball programs, and we were just at their year-end celebration. Many boys and girls taking part in that, and actually, I know you're here. I just maybe if you could explain the number of the blast ball diamonds that we had to try to add on and make room for to make up for their growth.
What are you doing? Thank you.
Okay,
Through you, Chair. The lighting of Bright Up is going to have a trickle-down effect across all sport, across all
Can you
diamonds.
speak up a little better, please?
Sorry. So, through you, Chair, the lighting of Bright Up Park is going to have a trickle effect through all users, through all of our diamonds within the city. So, as you alluded to, the Southwest Optimist T-Ball Club right now, we have requested that they restrict their growth as well because we cannot currently accommodate them. We do not have enough T-ball, blast ball level diamonds quality of play. So right now we are placing them on our B diamonds that could be used, that have greater distances, that could be used for the growth of other youth sport. But because we try to accommodate all of our users, we do allow T-ball and blast ball on our B diamonds currently to meet their need.
And just to be clear, the blast ball, t-ball, they don't require the same amount of room as a full baseball game.
Correct.
So, I just wonder if I might ask the young Kitchener Minor baseball players in the gallery, how many of you got your start playing t-ball or blast ball? So all of you started with t-ball and moved into Kitchener Minor baseball. Okay, that's very telling for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank the team that has been working on this since early spring, in particular Cynthia Fletcher, Denise McGoldrick, Ashley Purvis, Kim Kugler, and Mark Paris, who've been really treating this issue with great depth and professionalism. I want to ask a couple questions that have come to light. First of all, who would have control of the lights if lights were installed and, let's say, a team decided that they didn't need it or they couldn't use it? Could you walk us through what would be the process for turning off the lights in a timely fashion?
Ms. Goldrick?
So through you, Chair, the lighting of the lights, we have a contract with a third party that turns the lights on and off, so it's a simple phone call. So if the process would be that staff would be notified that the lights weren't required, and then it would be a simple phone call, and the lights would be shut off at the time specified. Other than changes, those kind of phone calls, and the lights are on an automated schedule in which they would be shut off at the specified times.
So just keep your mic on. Just to clarify, would you mean that the contact center staff would be able to make that phone call, or would we have to have additional staff on duty from sport to or operations to make that call? Who would be the one?
Through you, Chair, at this point in time, it is typically a sports field staff person, and we do have staff on into the evenings that can assist with that, as well as folks on call. We can look at, in terms of automating the process with CCC, as we look at that integration of software, but we have found, based on my understanding, that it's effective right now in terms of the current process.
Okay, thank you. As I was alluding to earlier when I was talking with one of the delegates in the hot seat, we're putting faith into our partners to do their best to respond to resident concerns. Can staff comment on whether or not there might be ways to ensure that that resident concerns are being listened to even by out-of-town visitors, perhaps in our contract with KNBA or otherwise?
Ms. Kugler?
Through you, Chair. So in regards to contracts, yes, we can deal with that administration, but I think that the strongest piece is that we really need to communicate to both groups, but I think it's also important when there is inappropriate conduct or actions transpiring. We do have a 24-hour contact center now, and we have a really great system that when those calls are actually placed to the contact center, that information goes to the appropriate area to deal with it immediately. If it's something that resolves itself before we can actually dispatch staff out, it allows us to document and keep the history of those items so that we can see if there's an improvement or if there is a hot spot that we need to deal with other measures and take more action with our user groups, whether it's Kitchener-Wire Baseball or other rental groups and other fields.
Is there ever a precedent set so far in doing spot checks with some of our staff going out in a proactive way to make sure that the behaviors on our sports fields are being appropriate, or would there be an ability to do that in the future?
We can definitely check in with our two. So security currently does do spot checks at a number of playing fields that tend to have higher incidences in them, and as well bylaw does the same type of thing. But if bylaw is not aware of any incidents or that they don't know the times, it's very difficult, but spot checks do exist for both of those areas currently.
Okay, those are all the questions I have at this time.
Okay. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chair. And I had a couple questions. The first question I had is the addition of the lighting here is, I guess, essentially adds the equivalent of a full diamond. Has that changed at all since we originally saw this back earlier in the year, or is it the same addition?
Ms. Goldrick?
That's the same addition.
It is the same, okay. My other question is on looking at the page 1310, the other options you have here. My first concern in upgrading and lighting alternate diamonds, do we not run a risk of potentially having the same sort of problems in those parks, in those areas as we have here? In other words, just moving a problem around?
Ms. Goldrick?
Chair, that is the concern, and part of the evaluation in terms of neighborhood impact.
whenever you make a change to a neighborhood, there is the potential for impact. And so that has certainly been a consideration that regardless of where we light, we're going to be having a discussion in terms of what those impacts are and how can we mitigate those impacts.
Okay. And given that I just heard that we are in need of further diamonds over and above this, I'm sort of assuming that the second option here of upgrading those diamonds and lighting them is something that's probably going to be before us in the near future anyway. Is that a safe assumption?
Ms. Goldrick?
Through you, Chair, I'll take that one. So we will be in the process of conducting the Leisure Facilities Master Plan, and some of the research will be to do further review of our fields and the use of our fields.
But, okay, because when I'm looking at, okay, I appreciate that, but I'm looking at the difference between the second option there and the third option of acquiring and building. I guess logic would dictate that we'd obviously be looking at that second option before the third one in the near term. Anyway, sorry, that's more of a comment. The only other question I had was with respect to the operating costs. It does show on page 13-2 that there might be additional operating costs as well with anything but lighting up Bright Up Park. Can staff comment on what they think that additional annual operating cost might be? And if not, it's fine if we can bring that up at a later date.
Ms. Goldrick?
So we can certainly provide more information on an estimate of what the operating impact will be. It's primarily related to dispersed fields and the need for additional operations and maintenance instead of it being more in a center location to being more dispersed throughout the community. And then in terms of other, the land purchase and diamond construction, that would be a growth impact. Just one point on that too, we've also had the same discussion in terms of volunteer impact, recognizing that that we have a great volunteer community that are often stretched, and likewise by having an efficient land use in terms of our diamond inventory, it also provides more efficient volunteer response as well.
Okay, thank you for that.
Councillor Etherington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to staff Appendix D on 13-18, the noise results. Was that bylaw who did those decibel reading tests?
Mr. Paris?
Through the chair, yes, that was bylaw that conducted these noise readings.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
That is bylaw that conducted these noise readings.
And I bring that up because I think the equipment we use to measure decibel reading, we should throw it out. Because I've seen constantly readings which, when people are complaining about noise, seem to have no bearing on the complaints. So we're satisfied with those results. Is that equipment sophisticated enough to give us decent results? Maybe bylaw should be invited back to answer that question.
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is sophisticated. It's professional equipment purchased on the advice of professional sound engineers. I can tell you the types of apps that you and I might download onto our phone or iPad and use are not as accurate.
But when, and I've had experience with this, as you know, when houses are shaking with noise, the decibel readings show that there's no problem. Anyway, I don't want to pursue that too far, but again, it's another example of how decibel readings do not impress residents when they see them.
Can we move along to another, or are you finished? Okay, thank you. Mayor Urbanovic.
Thank you. My last question that I want to ask goes back to the question I asked the delegation. And from a staff perspective, is there any reason why we couldn't look at, as much as possible, to book practice times into the second time slot to try to alleviate some of the concerns?
Through you, Chair. I think based on the information today, we can definitely take that away and look at that consideration and see how we can maybe utilize that and look at what those implications are.
It seems to me, on the surface, that's a quick and easy win to potentially address some of the concern.
We'll definitely evaluate that.
Okay, thank you.
Makes sense. Okay, we have no further questions. Councillor Marsh?
So at this time, I'd like to put forward a motion to refer the decision on this issue to council meeting on August 28th. And this is because, as was mentioned earlier by Mayor Verbanovic, that we've had a delay in the notifications going out to the community, and it was brought to our attention that some people had not even received their letter until after the noted deadline for registering as a delegate. We know that in practice that anybody coming forward to a meeting is not turned away if they want to speak at the last minute, but the official writing is that we have a deadline, and if the deadline's already passed when a person receives a notification, that's a disincentive for them to come forward. People can still register if they wanted to come speak to this issue at our council meeting on the 28th, and so it's only fair for this committee and council to hear all delegates who wish to come forward before making a final decision.
Okay, so that's your motion. We're going to have questions on timing. Councillor Gazzola?
Does that mean the final vote will be taken on August the 28th? There won't be a week in between for people to know who voted which way? Does that eliminate that part of the process?
Yes. Yes, that's what it would do.
That's what I figured it would do.
Councillor Galloway-Seelock?
I just want to make a really brief comment. I haven't asked any questions or said anything today because I found a lot of the information very helpful in the report and listening to the residents. I also just want to point out, I know Mr. Pegg's here, Mr. McKillop's here, but from my experience, Mr. Schilling's here and Mr. Johnson's here as well, who have been long-term supporters of baseball in our community. And so I just wanted to point out them, as well as I know the children have already been recognized, but it's impressive that you've made the time to come out today and sit through this meeting. I do wish we could make a decision today in one way or the other, but I can appreciate that we need to hear fully from the residents who are in the area as well, and so I can support the referral till the council meeting, but I did just want to recognize everyone who's here today and all the efforts that everyone has put into making this a very fulsome discussion to this point, and it'll be even more so when we have to make a decision at the council meeting. So I just wanted to thank everyone for their time and energy that they've spent supporting one way or the other, or trying to compromise, or staff, and the members of council who have put a lot of time into this, and I just want to make that recognition.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I previously had a question, I have a comment.
You have a comment? Okay.
I'm not in favor of deferring this because it really circumvents the process that we have. It would be nice to have a vote here today so that the community can see how members of council are leaning, or in what direction it is. It also gives the community an opportunity to discuss further with members of council. This way, and members of council have a week to think about a decision they may or may not have made. The decision is not final today. It would be finalized next week. So I just think I don't like it when we circumvent the process. I mean, our life is not going to be ruined by an extra week or what have you.
Mayor Urbanovic?
Thank you. To be absolutely clear, and I will be supporting Councillor Marshall's recommendation, nobody is circumventing any process. What we're trying to do is address concerns that came from the neighborhood group, including representatives who were speaking here today, who raised concerns around the fact that some people did not get communication. And the fairest way of dealing with that, so that there isn't a decision taken before we've had the opportunity to hear from everyone, is to actually deal with it through a referral process. I think it's reasonable, it's fair, it's not unheard of. We've done it numerous times, and I think it is the best way of dealing with it, and I will be supporting Councillor Marsh's motion.
Councillor Schneider?
Thank you, Chair. I also will support Councillor Marsh's recommendation. We've heard a lot of great information today from both sides, but we haven't heard it all, and I'm not prepared to make a decision without hearing all that information.
Okay. We don't have any further questions, or comments? Recorded vote. I'll just make one quick comment before. I think through the discussions, I do believe staff did a tremendous job in notifying the neighborhood, and I don't think that there was any indication that I've seen, and through the timing and everything else, we did defer this decision prior to the spring. So, I mean, the community did have a lot of notice, and if they were truly invested in this completely, they would have been aware of the entire process. But with that, I do respect their time to wanting to come to council, and therefore I will support the deferral or the referral. So we do have a recorded vote, so the voting is open. Please vote. All those in favor, please stand. Opposed? Okay, thank you. So this concludes this item, but just for all the members and in the residents that are in the audience, that this will be referred to our council meeting on August 28th. Okay. Just want to make a quick note. Is there a Laura Paprocki here? Okay, we're going to deal with item number 16 first, because she's registered as a delegate for this, and so we will move on to that. So we don't have a presentation for item number 16, but that's dealing with the 40-kilometer speed limit, shared cycling roadways, and you're welcome to come down and speak, Laura. You do have 5 minutes. Perhaps we'll give you just give you like 30 seconds for people to shuffle out of here. Okay, when you're ready.
I can go. Hi, my name is Laura Paprocki, and I sit on the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee for the City of Kitchener. Today I would like to speak briefly in favor of reducing the speed limit to 40 kilometers per hour on roadways that are designated primarily with sharrows. My perspective is a personal one. In August 2015, I was in a cycling accident involving a vehicle. I was riding on the shoulder of a country road and was hit head-on by a vehicle traveling over 100 kilometers an hour. I feel that because I'm here...
Take your time. It's okay.
Because I am here and able to walk and speak at this meeting, that it is my responsibility to endorse rules that keep cyclists safe. Thank you. Thank you. We generally think about the benefit for cyclists when decisions like these are made, but I'm also asking you to think of the driver. I have thought of the man who was behind the wheel of the vehicle that struck me so many times in the last 2 years. None of us want to be him. No one wants to pay the price of having taken someone's life or caused serious injury because for a split second they made a mistake. We're asking drivers to reduce their speeds in targeted areas for short distances, adding a minute or two to their destination in exchange for avoiding potentially fatal collisions with cyclists. In the case of my accident, I had no warning. I know that 1,000 thoughts flashed through my head in the moment between recognizing that I was going to be in a very serious, likely fatal collision and the actual impact. The police report suggests that I made a final attempt to steer away from the oncoming vehicle, which likely saved my life. It did not prevent injury. I did this instantly. If I had had just a split second longer, could the accident have been avoided altogether? Would I still be running marathons? What if he had been driving slower? There isn't much I wouldn't do to have had 2 more seconds. I'm asking you to support a decision that will give future cyclists and drivers those precious seconds. We've already made great strides by reducing speeds and prioritizing safety in school zones, and I think it is time that we honor our large cycling community by doing the same. The City of Kitchener has made cycling an initiative, and I'm excited to be part of a committee that has had a hand in making positive change in our community. Council's vote in favor of reducing the speed limits in certain areas is a vote for a safer and healthier Kitchener. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We do have some questions for you from the committee, but first of all, I just want to thank you for sharing your story, and it was very emotional, and I'm sure the committee will take that into light. Okay, Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Laura, for coming in, and I know you've been a very strong and active participant in our Cycling Advisory Committee, and when you approached me to come and talk today, I really strongly encouraged you. I know that your healing is continuing, and I thank you for volunteering and being a part of our Cycling Advisory Committee. I think your story is compelling, and I appreciate you taking the time to come in today.
Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you for your brave presentation. I really appreciate hearing firsthand from someone who has had that experience, and I too think that it's important to reduce speed. Just one question: is 40 kilometers an hour enough?
The only time I've ever been hit was 100 kilometers an hour, so I can only tell you that you don't want to be hit going that fast. I think the report that was sent out to everyone outlines the recommendations, and I haven't done future investigations myself, but I found it very eye-opening in the report just how much that 10 kilometers, if you have 60 kilometers, 50, and the reduction of serious injury at 40, whether that's the end of the story, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
We have no further questions from the first, but we have second round. Councillor Fernandez.
Actually, I don't have a question. I just wanted to move this motion when it was appropriate.
Okay, we have no further questions, so comments. So thank you, Ms. Paprocki.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have comments? Anyone make their comments? Can please, Councillor Marsh.
Just a question of staff. I'm wondering why it is that we're not reducing the speed limit on Queen Street North and Queen Street South, right from King Street.
Mr. Carmichael.
Through the chair, can you be more specific in that question, please?
So in this list on page 1 of item 16, the fourth from the bottom and the third from the bottom, Queen Street North from Duke Street West to Lancaster Street East, and then Queen Street North from which should be south, from St. George Street to Church Street? Why not Queen Street North from King Street to Lancaster and Queen Street South from King Street to Church Street?
Through the chair, this simply is, we're recommending the reduced speed limit in the areas where we have sharrows in place, and that is the locations on Queen where we do have them in place. The remaining area that we refer to, we don't have sharrows in place.
Okay.
But
so then I would just
to a request for it.
Want to recommend just to slightly amend this recommendation to change the boundary on Queen Street so that it includes that section between Duke and Church.
Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair, the recommended placemaking plan for Queen Street also includes sharrows, so that amendment wouldn't be any issue for us to incorporate now.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I could add, sorry, I would recommend that we would limit it or put the boundaries on it from Lancaster right down to Cortland Avenue, because we'll have a significant amount of sharrows through that entire corridor, and it's kind of reflective of the operations of that roadway. So, and based on Justin's comment on the placemaking, will be added to that. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fernandez?
Yes, is there a way that we will be able to judge the success of this reduction, Mr. Carmichael? I mean, I know that it'll require some policing. How quickly will the signs go up? What kind of education will we be attempting to do with the public?
Thank you. Through the chair, how we will measure this success, there'll be probably a few ways we can do that. Obviously, we'll measure before and after speeds on the roadway, but we'll also, probably more importantly, do an assessment of the collision experience before and after the change of the speed limit in these sharrow areas. That certainly will, now keep in mind, it will take some time to make that data valuable when it comes to assessing collisions. It takes a number of years to make the data worthwhile assessing. And there's a follow-up question there. Sorry, could you?
Education.
Oh, yes, thank you. Education is a huge aspect. Working with the committee is a big part of that you're familiar with. And I will certainly take that back to staff on, we have talked preliminarily about how we will get the message out on this. Certainly we will use our communications division to get the word out, but we'll investigate any other opportunities to get the word out as well, because we would share that desire to spread the word.
Okay. I mean, you know, most of us have seen recently in the last number of months real estate signs that says, you know, coming soon. Would you consider something like that, you know, 40 with a sign across or something like that we could pull off saying coming soon? Just I think that might give people that thought, oh, this is going to change, something's going to change here.
Through the chair, the standard signing when we change regulations similar to this through the Ontario Traffic Manual is to put new sunburst signs. And we've done that with some changes in traffic controls, and we can certainly do that with the speed limit changes. Doing so in advance, certainly happy to have that discussion further outside of this meeting.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much.
Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. I want to thank staff for a great report. All the research in here makes total sense to me. Zeller Drive is in my ward, and I know when we were discussing the bike lane implementation, one of the biggest concerns that I heard during that was the speed of streets. And I know when we campaign, we hear speeding on residential streets is an issue. So this is a great initiative, and I'm going to be happy to support it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, what is the speed limit in the majority of the city?
Through the chair, the standard speed limit within an urbanized area is 50 kilometers per hour.
Okay. How long have the sharrows been in place?
Through the chair, the first location we implemented them was King Street downtown in 2014. Followed up the year or two after we completed the majority of the remainder of downtown, and we also have isolated other locations within the city since that 14, but 14 was the first.
They're primarily interested in the down and King Street. Do we have any statistics as to what happened prior to the sharrows being put in and now that the sharrows have been in place for 2 or 3 years?
Through the chair, not on hand, I do not, but be happy to follow that up and report back if you desire.
Do you have figures for prior to 2013?
Through the chair, yes, we would have both collision data and some speed data.
Since the sharrows have been in place, have there been any accidents on streets that have sharrows?
Mr. Reedman? Sorry.
Through the chair, I believe a report came to council about 1.5 years ago that gave an update on how the sharrows were functioning. So we can recirculate that report. There are some collisions that still do occur. From recollection, I believe the majority of them were cyclists riding on the sidewalk and hitting a car at a cross street. That seemed to be the majority, but they were all outlined in that report, which I can circulate to members of council.
I wonder also, do we have data on the amount of cycling that's taking place in the community and the change, if there has been change?
Through the chair, that's something we're striving to improve upon. We are currently investigating purchasing more infrastructure to count cyclists. It is a challenge. But we're also working with the region on that. So I don't have a finite answer for you what's happened over the past few years, but we have an extremely strong desire to find out that information as well and are working towards it.
So if we approve this recommendation from staff, it means that the speed limit is reduced on those streets at all times, not just when a cyclist is there.
Through the chair, that's correct.
So what I don't understand is when a cyclist is there, can a car travel over 40? Can the car travel over 30?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if that was a rhetorical question or not, but I would suggest depending on the roadways design, there certainly is opportunity for vehicles to travel at a higher speed and be still sharing the roadway with the cyclist.
And still share, well, I thought the cyclist has the right of way down the center of the lane of the road. How can vehicles be doing a greater speed than what the cyclist is doing?
Through the chair, that's a fair question. The cyclist also has an obligation to keep up with the speeds of traffic on that roadway, so they don't have a right to use the center of that lane unless they are maintaining a speed that keeps them with regular traffic. When I speak to areas where we have sharrows in place, depending on the lane width, there is still opportunity for a cyclist to, for lack of a better way to describe it, hug the curb area and be closer to the curb, and a car can go by it within that lane, and that's where I say the speeds of those vehicles unfortunately could be anything, all dependent on the driver.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Now there are a number of comments from surveys, and it keeps referring to comparing speeds to pedestrians. Is that applicable here?
Through the chair, it's a very similar comparison in that the higher speed a pedestrian gets hit at, increases the chance of serious or fatal injuries. I would suggest that the same theory would apply to cyclists based on their exposure to the vehicles. So the higher the speed, the higher the chance of increased injury.
But if we follow through on this, we have pedestrians all over the city. Should we be reducing all our speeds throughout the entire city, wherever we're going to have a pedestrian?
Through the chair, the cyclists are sharing the roadways with the vehicles that we're proposing this reduced speed limit. We're not in any situation where we're asking pedestrians to share the roadway with cars.
Okay. I'm just referring to you keep referring to these studies that deal with pedestrians. I just wonder if they're truly applicable.
Okay.
Through the chair, I think it's fair to say that lower speeds are going to provide that benefit, but like anything else, it's a balance and creating a realistic expectation for our drivers.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Yeah, I was a little, honestly, I was a little puzzled. I don't have a lot of history on this this report, but the part that confuses me is I've heard over the years that lowering whenever there's traffic concern on the street or speeding concern on the street, what staffs often come back with when we suggest lowering the speed limit is that it will have no effect. Vehicles are going to travel at the speed at which they feel safe traveling. How does that not apply here?
Through the chair, the reluctance to reduce speed limits for the sake of reducing speed limits is based on the fact that studies show that just reducing a speed limit and putting up a sign has a very minimal effect. Where staff is coming from, where we have recommended reduced speed limits in the past, which have been limited, but also would include this report, is acknowledgement of the situation where there are cyclists and vehicles sharing the road, which will reduce speeds on their own naturally, but what we want to do is get ahead of that curve and be proactive in posting that regulation just to reinforce that expectation of drivers.
Okay, the other thing that I was hoping to see in this report too is sort of like, I know we're talking about like dozens of streets here, but the average speed, do we have that data, like the average speed of those roads that vehicles are traveling at here? Because I would like an idea of, like, are people traveling much in excess of the existing posted speed or the existing accepted speed limit?
Through the chair, I don't have that information in front of me, but I would suggest our database will have speeds for probably every roadway on there, yes.
Would it be possible to have that information or as much information as we have in that respect in time for the council meeting?
Through the chair, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Galloway-Sealock.
Yeah, mine's more of a comment. I was going to suggest that we put speed advisory signs out in the beginning and speed counts before and after, but there's quite a few roadways that we're changing, so that might be difficult because we don't have as many signs. But for me, I have no problem slowing down 10 kilometers to avoid any potential conflict that may happen. It's not long stretches of roadway we're talking about, and if it means the safety of not only me and my vehicle or me as a cyclist or other cyclists around me, that is important. And I just want to give a sincere thank you to Laura for coming in and having the courage to share your story with us. I think with that brings the experience and perspective that we need to make this decision, and so I appreciate your time in sharing that, your story, and I'm happy to see that you're here today and using your experience to help inform us and help us to make a decision that will be better, in my opinion, for our community. So I really do support this initiative, and I know that we all need a reminder to slow down sometimes, and this can be that reminder. And I also know that we will also need enforcement to make this a reality and make drivers obey the new rules that potentially will be in place. So I appreciate this coming forward, and I think we all should take the time to just slow down a little bit. Sometimes we move at fast paces, and as we all see around and hear from our residents that we'd all like 40 kilometers on certain streets, but we have to do it where it's realistic, and I think that this is the right step forward.
Zig, Councillor Unesky. Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Having read the report, I noticed that the bike share study that was done back with the cyclists suggests that only 14% of the people or cyclists feel safe when they use the Sharrows. And I thought that was extremely low, and I'm not surprised. Because when I come down to the downtown area and take local streets that got Sharrows, I hardly see anybody on there. Actually, I see people, bicyclists, who are totally disobeying the rules of the road and cutting through here and there and everywhere, as opposed to anybody following the Sharrows. So I decided over the weekend to check how safe the Sharrows are, and I got on the internet, did some research, and found that a lot of the links, quite a few of the links, said that Sharrows aren't safe. In fact, there's a study that was just done by the 2 scholars at the University of Colorado that said the shells should all be removed because they're not safe, no matter what the speeds are. And I looked at the other links on the internet, and there's a lot of discussion saying that shells are basically not being recommended. My first experience with shells was back about 5-6 years ago when I was in Chicago on the conference, and we were on a bus tour of the new shells that were installed. And of course, the bus was following the shells. And there were some bicyclists on there holding up all the traffic. So the study here goes on to say that they found that the use of shells in Chicago has really caused much more concern, and the recommendation basically in the end is that they should be removed. So having taken this all into consideration and seeing how staff has written the report in a positive way, as opposed to what I've been finding on the internet, I find we're going in the wrong direction on this. I think that lowering the speed limits aren't really going to do much benefit because the drivers will still want to continue on at the regular speeds. I mean, you may want to even reduce them down to 30 kilometers an hour or even 20. And I don't think it's going to be much of benefit. Yes, statistically, yes, I would agree that the higher the speed, and if you happen to be involved in an accident, yes, the danger is greater of fatality at a higher speed, regardless, even if you're in your automobile. But the cyclists still don't want to use it. They prefer to have bike lanes or trail link systems, and that's where they feel the most safest. So I think this is just a cover-up approach to try to reduce it. That is not going to basically work, so I'm not prepared to support it.
Councillor Gazzola?
Yeah, I would like to move a referral of this to next Monday night. I've asked a number of questions for additional information. Councillor Davey asked an excellent question about our present practices. So before, and at this point I'm not totally clear in what direction I'd like to move, so I would, similar to the other situation, if we could leave this until next Monday night when we get all of that information that's being asked for, and staff are saying that they can provide it. So I'm moving referral to next Monday night.
Okay, we'll look at that. Just follow up the questions, and then we'll take it. I will take at it. We're gonna answer a few of the remainder of committee's questions, and then we'll go to your referral. Mayor Urbanovic.
Well, Mr. Chair, actually, I have a comment more than questions, and since others have availed themselves of the opportunity to do that, I certainly am supporting of the direction that we're going. I too want to thank Laura for coming in and sharing her story and her perspectives, because I think it does bring a real life example in for us. And helps emphasize the importance of the steps that we're taking. I think the reality is there are those who would argue that there's a lot more we could and should be doing, and perhaps that is the case. But I think as we ponder that and look at other things that we can do, I think it's important that that doesn't stop us from taking more steps in a progressive direction as far as issues of cycling and safe cycling and safe traffic management practices goes. And so I think this is the next step. It comes with the support of our advisory committee. And so I will be supporting it, and hope that, if we need to refer it, I'm fine. I'm not sure why that's necessary in this instance. But if, whether it's today or next Monday, I will be supporting it.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'll support the referral by Councillor Gazzola. My intention was to sort of tentatively support staff's recommendation on this, but I do have, I guess, I come from the perspective of when I see these things and I see a price tag, for example, of $15,000, which is not an insignificant amount of money as far as I'm concerned, I ask myself the question, is that the best way to affect behavior? Is this the best way to affect behavior? What are the results going to be? And given advice in the past, my fear is we're going to go through and replace all these signs and we're not going to see a significant reduction in speeds. So I would like some additional information from staff. And the other, I guess, personal plus is, unfortunately, Laura had to step out for a moment, but we do record these meetings, and when I came back in, I got the sense that I missed something important. So I promise you I will watch your presentation online before we make the final decision next week, or the following week.
Councillor Marsh.
I find it interesting that within the same meeting, we're having a request for a referral from a councillor who didn't like the idea of a referral because it's hindering the process. I personally don't need the referral at this point, but if others need it, I can support it. I'm not going to be small-minded about that, but I absolutely feel that we need to take this step. And it might not be enough. Maybe we need to follow the lead of other communities and reduce that speed down to 25 kilometers an hour. I also would like to invite all of us to, between now and next meeting, to read what we have on our own website about Sharrows in downtown Kitchener, because we do, in fact, want those to indicate that that cyclists can take the lane, but that we want cyclists to be able to follow along the curb when possible, if they desire. It's up to the cyclist and where they feel safest. We need to educate road vehicle operators, but also cyclists, about how to share the road. And it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight. And yes, we need the partners of our police, of our regional police services to enforce the speeds. But if we're going to keep it at 50 kilometers an hour, then that will not happen. We will not have safe speeds where we have Sharrows.
Councillor Gazzola.
I just want to mention briefly that I take exception to be called small-minded, and perhaps someone should have pointed that out. I probably am small-minded, I guess.
Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Just a brief comment. Yesterday when I was cycling to go and visit the residents on Union Street, I had the opportunity to use Sharrows a couple times with my husband. And although I still felt slightly uncomfortable because cars will come quite close behind a cyclist, we were trying to maintain as good a speed as possible. But if that had been 40, I think I would have felt a slight bit more comfortable, because I know that I can't maintain 40. Certainly I'm trying to maintain about a 25 going on most of the streets. I think this is a good step in the right direction, and yes, Sharrows have not done, I think, everything we had hoped it would do, but it's a process, and it continues to be an education process, and compelling stories like Laura's, and we had another cyclist on our committee that was hit broadside and had his collarbone broken. It's those kind of stories that we have to keep telling, because cyclists have a right to be on the road, and whether they take the lane or they hug the curb, which I have to tell you in many instances is extremely dangerous. I don't know how many times I had to point out to my husband, because he was following me, the number of potholes and cracks and crevices and dangerous spots that we had to veer out further into traffic so that we could ride safely. We have the right to have that road. We have the right to be able to cycle safely in our community. And whether it's cycle tracks, bike lanes, trails, or being on the road, I'm extremely passionate about this, and I do not want to fear for my life every time I get on my bike. This is a great step in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. We have no further comments. I will make my comments. first of all, I won't be supporting the referral. I think it's not going to make much of a difference in the information that's going to be provided, but and I think some of the concerns about the perception of the sign speed limit going lower than what it is. Yes, it may be just a perception, but I think in the case of a fatality or anything like that, when a family wants to know what did the city do to do their best, and whether or not this is just a perception or this is a reality, I think it's worth our cost, and I don't think it's an expensive cost to implement and to provide support to other users to the road network. And in light of hearing Mr. Paprocki's current situation, that's more the reason why we need to do what we're implementing today. So with that, I call a recorded vote for the referral? Or no? Okay, we're not going to. Okay, I'm not going to call a recall vote. Sorry, for the referral.
I'll call the recorded vote.
Okay, thank you. For the referral. All those in favor of the referral? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. We will now move on to item number 14. Okay, thank you. We are dealing with item number 14, the 2017-2018 School Safety Review. We have no comments. Moved by Councillor Davey. Item number 14, the School Safety Review. It's been moved by Councillor Davey. Do we have questions or comments? Councillor Marsh?
My apologies. No, I don't.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 15, dealing with the Rittenhouse Road Traffic Calming Review. Moved by Councillor Singh. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And that concludes our Community Infrastructure Service Committee for Monday, August 21st, 2017. Thank you.